For those of you who aren't well acquainted with me, I love the game Darkest Dungeon. I've spent over 200 hours on the game across PC and Switch and have beaten the game a couple times. But in my multiple attempts, there's always one challenge that has eluded me, and that's a Blood Moon run. A Blood Moon run consists of the Stygian difficulty, the hardest difficulty, along with the Crimson Court DLC enabled. But what's the difference between a Blood Moon and a Stygian? Hell, what's the difference between that and a regular run? Well, for starters, the only difference between a Blood Moon and a Stygian is the amount of hero deaths and the total length of the run. On Stygian, you're allowed only 12 hero deaths and have 86 weeks to complete the game, whereas on Blood Moon, you're allowed 16 deaths with 100 weeks to complete the game. This makes it sound like Blood Moon is easier, but the Crimson Court DLC makes the game incredibly harder by adding new enemies and new bosses. Other differences between a regular run and a Blood Moon run consist of increased enemy health and crit rate, more stress on your heroes, upgrades cost more, and the light meter depletes a lot faster. Darkest Dungeon is already known to be a very difficult game, but Blood Moon is a whole nother level. I've attempted Stygian and Blood Moon runs before, but I've never been able to fully finish one. In this video, I'll talk through everything that happened in the span of an entire run, with the video split up into chapters. Each chapter will be about 10 weeks or so, and, well, let's see how we do. So let's start with 1 through 10. I'll be honest, the beginning of any Darkest Dungeon run has a good amount of RNG involved. Every week at the stagecoach, you get new characters to recruit. After the first initial week, the characters are all random with random quirks and moves unlocked, which leads to the first goal for me in a Darkest Dungeon run, which is upgrading the stagecoach so I can recruit level 1 characters, but we'll get to that eventually. Let's start with the basic week 1. After our introduction week, we get the scripted Plague Doctor and Vessel, and I wasn't happy with the Vessel because they did not have the best healing move unlocked. But that's just RNG sometimes. But luckily, the first week wasn't bad in terms of the dungeon itself. Nothing too dramatic happened, not a lot of stress, and we made some money. Once we get to week 2, we check which heroes are available, and we are given a Highwayman, a Plague Doctor, and a Shield Breaker to choose from. They all had some pretty good moves unlocked, so I decided to take them all. Without the blacksmith and guild open, I still can't unlock new moves I want for my characters, so it's good to have a second Highwayman and Plague Doctor with a somewhat different moveset. Only having one healer at the moment though, being our Vessel, it's a bit stressful as I deem them necessary for every quest for the time being. I send out all 3 new recruits on a mission immediately along with the Vessel. They go through the dungeon flawlessly and we end with getting just over 10,000 gold and a few heirlooms. The Vessel had about 60 stress, so we were hoping for a stress healer or another healer going into week 3. And of course, with my luck or lack thereof, there weren't any healers available. But we did pick up a bounty hunter and a man-at-arms. Along in week 3, we have the guild and blacksmith open, and I try to level them up a bit so I can get closer to recruiting level 1 heroes. Along with a couple upgrades, I spend a few thousand gold unlocking desired moves and leveling up a couple moves to level 2 on my Vessel. The more heals, the better. I decided to do our first medium mission to grab a life crystal trinket, which gives the character 20% more HP in exchange for 1 less speed. We brought a man-at-arms, a highwayman, Plague Doctor, and a Vessel, of course. And that's basically most of the run aside from making bosses spawn, checking for good recruits, leveling up, and choosing a level based on what trinket you can get, because trinkets play a big role in any run. The next few weeks were pretty simple. We had a few afflictions and a few close calls with stress levels, but we escaped week 3 with 0 deaths and achieved another run with over 10,000 gold. I will say that I try not to spend too much money on de-stressing characters unless they have an affliction or are really close to one. If you didn't know, you can cure afflictions in the middle of a run if you manage to get their stress back down to 0. It's really hard to pull off, especially for me with no stress healers at the moment, but a Jester is the best character at completely removing an affliction. And now on to week 4, we recruited a Hellion and a Grave Robber, which are both very strong DPS. And I will say, I undervalue the Grave Robber at the beginning of this run, but later on, you'll see how good they can actually be. My problem going into week 4, though, is that I didn't have a consistent healer with me, as my only Vessel was de-stressing, so I had to improvise. I decided to use my Crusader as a healer slash de-stressor since I bought the moves from the guild. Along with the Crusader, I brought 2 Plague Doctors and a Grave Robber, and decided to do my first mission in the Cove because most enemies in the Cove are extremely weak to Blight, which is a damage over time status effect that the Plague Doctors are especially good at. The mission ended in success, though there was some relatively high stress on a couple characters, but no afflictions to worry about. Somehow this single heal Crusader worked well. On to week 5, it gives me a free Flagellant from a scripted town event, This occurs if you have the Flagellant DLC, so I gladly took him, and also recruited a much needed vessel as one was available in the stagecoach. And also in week 5, our first boss spawned, which was the Necromancer in the Ruins. I decided to bring a Hellion, Man-at-Arms, Plague Doctor, and a vessel, of course. The Hellion could hit every enemy consistently, the Man-at-Arms could use Riposte and buff the entire team's dodge, as well as lessen the amount of stress we gained with Bolster. The Plague Doctor could blight enemies in any spot easily, and the vessel could heal. And since this is the first level of the Necromancer fight, they can easily be bled and blighted. But I'm also aware that they can move a lot due to spawning enemies. I felt I had a strong team and knew if we failed we'd be in trouble due to lack of money. And well, we kept running into enemies and everyone was gaining afflictions left and right. In hindsight, I should have ran away after 2 afflictions, but I still had the confidence I'd be able to win. That is, until we ran into another boss that randomly roams hallways, the Collector. In reality, the Collector's a pretty easy boss to kill, but with the shape of my team and the inconsistent damage, we were no match. Instead of running away and taking a little extra stress like a smart person would have done, I tried to fight them and, well, I won, but at the cost of everything except the vessel. In reality, it was my fault. I lost 3 people, and at this rate, 3 deaths in week 5 or 6, or whatever they want to count it as, it isn't good. Luckily for me, I found the secret room, which allows me to get some good trinkets and items worth a good amount of money. So while I must abandon the quest, in the process, I gained 9k gold, which will allow the run to continue. Alright, we're gonna go through these next few weeks pretty fast, as we'd be here all day if I thoroughly explained every single week. This next week, we recruit a Hellion and a Man-at-Arms again. We do our first mission in the Warrens, and once we finish the quest, we decide to fight a Shambler, because why the heck not? A Shambler is another boss that you can spawn by using a torch on one of the altars in the hallway, and let me tell you, this was a big mistake. We end up having to run away for the time being, as I gotta play this more smart. And at this point, I don't have a lot of money, but I am trying to save for the Bank District, which requires 50 portrait heirlooms and 15,000 gold. The Bank District gives you 5% interest on all saved gold, which will be very strong if I can get it early on. In addition to the bank, I'm still slowly upgrading the guild, blacksmith, and stagecoach so I can recruit level 1 heroes. And at this time, I still can only do level 0s, so we recruit a Houndmaster. One of the best classes in the game. They can heal themselves, can stress heal everybody, they can stun, mark enemies, and deal a good amount of damage, and they have a goddamn dog. They can be a good character in the 2, 3, or 4 slot depending on how you play them. We bring them on a mission in the Warrens with a Crusader, Bounty Hunter, and a Vessel, and they easily get the mission done, no afflictions. Next is week 8, where we recruit a Leper. The Leper can deal a crazy amount of damage, stress heal themselves, and so much more, as we will see later. But we decide to go in and attempt the Necromancer again. We bring the Bounty Hunter, Highwayman, Houndmaster, and a Vessel. Sorry, Leper, not yet. Bounty Hunter can easily move backline characters if the Necromancer gets too far, and then they can also mark them, allowing them to do more damage on the move Collect Bounty, which does 90% more damage versus marked targets. The Highwayman can easily move between the 1 and 2 frontline spots with Pistol Shot and Duelist Advance. Duelist Advance will give us Riposte, which will have the Highwayman deal damage to most enemies who attempt to attack them. The Houndmaster can stress heal and easily deal damage to any enemy regardless of position with Hound's Rush, which also deals 60% more damage versus marked enemies, and they can make enemies bleed, which is not really good in the Ruins, but it's good against the Necromancer. And then of course we have the Vessel for healing, and this time we easily kill the Necromancer while only gaining a little bit of stress on everyone. We de-stress easily with the camp after and explore a little bit more of the dungeon. We ended up getting an affliction, but escaped with 9,000 gold in our first defeated boss. Week 9's an easy one. We recruit an Arbalist who's a specialist in the backline, upgrade the town very little, and unlock some new moves. We bring a Leper, Houndmaster, Shieldbreaker, and Vessel into the Weld, which is a short, easy mission for 8,500 gold. Our Leper can finally shine. And with that successful mission, week 10 is upon us, and we finally upgrade our stagecoach to Experienced Recruits 1, which allows us to have the chance to find level 1 characters instead of level 0s. And let me tell you, level 1 recruits will have armor upgraded automatically and every move unlocked to whatever level they are, which in the long run will save us a lot of gold. And now I decided to recruit an Antiquarian, as they can provide a lot of value early on in the game. They can provide team-wide buffs to dodge, and on top of that, if you check a curio in the middle of a mission with them, they get you a bonus item worth 500 gold that can stack 20 times in your inventory. Basically, they get you a lot of money. We brought a Leper, Flagellant, Antiquarian, and an Arbalist. And you may be asking, where are the healers? The game's only given me 2 vessels, and I don't want to over level them so early, as if I get them to level 3, they won't go on a level 1 mission, so I need to improvise. Luckily, the leper can self-heal with Solemnity, the flagellant can self-heal when their HP glows 40% with Exsanguinate, and the arbalist and antiquarian can heal anyone on the team. Though granted, it's a very small heal, but with trinkets we can boost the arbalist healing. And with this team, we easily get the mission done and gain almost 12,000 gold. Okay, I'll admit, through 10 weeks, that's not the best start in the world. We only defeated 1 boss and we lost 3 characters in the process. But we did upgrade the Hamlet enough so we can recruit level 1 characters when they show up, which will save us a lot of money in the long run. Now, week 11 starts off hot. They finally give us a Jester and an Occultist. The Jester has the best single stress heal move in the game with Inspire and Tune, and then one of the best team buffs with Battle Ballad, where it buffs your team's speed, accuracy, and crit rate for a few turns. And it can even stack for multiple buffs. And then the Occultist is just a fantastically inconsistent healer with their move Word Reconstruction. Personally, I run the Occultist as a healer and give some healing related trinkets to them to buff their healing move, and it usually works out, but they are still very reliable with damage, moving, stunning, and marking targets. They can be helpful in any position on almost every team comp, but the bad news is I only had room for 1 hero on my team as I didn't have enough heirlooms to upgrade my stagecoach. I decided to pick the Occultist because of my recent upgrade. They were level 1 and had armor upgraded and every move unlocked. Most characters picked at this rate will be level 1 to save money, as now I needed to save up for the bank district. Now we bring this Occultist out immediately on the next couple missions with 2 different squads. Both missions were medium level missions and we had no problem. Good money made and no afflictions. At this point, I was trying to focus on medium level missions more often as they would give me more resolve XP, better rewards, and help bosses spawn faster. Which is related to one thing I was keeping my eye on, which was character levels, and I was trying to level everybody up evenly. Every boss we fight has 3 versions with a level 1, 3, and 5 mission for them, and if one of my character gets to level 3, they will refuse to embark on a level 1 mission, even if it's a boss. Same can be said with level 5 characters going on a level 3 mission. So I had to make sure I wasn't leveling certain characters too fast, as then they won't be usable for a bit. And after those couple Occultist missions, we go into week 13, and I decided it was time for the next boss fight, as I had a couple of them spawn. I decided we'll fight the Siren in the Cove next, one of my least favorite bosses, as she can turn one of your characters against you for a few turns. I decided to bring a Hellion, as she can attack all positions easily and can do decent damage from almost every spot. A Bounty Hunter, as they can also do a good amount of damage in almost any position and can even mark targets to do more damage. Remember the move Collect Bounty? Yeah, it's going to be useful here. And I was also bringing an Arbalist to play the backline because they can also mark targets easily, and they do good damage to every enemy position besides the first position, which wouldn't matter in general because the Siren is a size 2 boss, meaning they take up 2 spots regardless. And if the Arbalist has got to get seduced by the Siren, I wouldn't need to worry about moving them back once they come back to our side. And lastly, I'm bringing the Occultist because of their ability to heal from any position and how reliable their damage is against Eldritch. The Occultist has 2 moves with Abysmal Artillery and Sacrificial Stab, which have bonus damage against Eldritch, and the Siren is an Eldritch enemy. And also, the Cove as a whole just has a lot of Eldritch enemies, so the Occultist really benefits going in there. And on our way to the Siren, we had no problems, and as usual, camped before the fight to apply a few buffs and to de-stress. As you can guess, we easily destroyed the Siren with good marking, some nice crits, and then we explore the rest of the dungeon and leave with 10,000 gold total and a good amount of heirlooms. And we don't really recruit anyone in week 14, and we just do a short mission in the Warrens to get a decent grave robber trinket and to hopefully spawn a boss. We brought an Antiquarian for dodge buff and money, a Vessel for heals, a Shield Breaker for good damage everywhere, and a Man-at-Arms just for general support and riposte. Mission was successful with 15,000 gold. Going into week 15, we don't recruit anyone again. Eventually, we'll get a Jester. But this time around, the Swine Prince boss spawned, and we decide that we're gonna go fight them. I decided to bring a Leper for strong frontline damage, as the Swine Prince takes up the first 3 spots, so it would be easy to hit them. A Flagellant and the Plague Doctor for damage over time buildup, as they are very weak to bleed and blight, and then a Vessel for our main healing. Now, getting to the boss did have some problems, as we almost got an affliction on the Plague Doctor, as we didn't have a consistent backline damage besides the damage over time with the Plague Grenade and Rain of Sorrows, which can apply bleed and blight to the back 2 enemies. And it doesn't deal a lot of damage, so we had to take some hits every battle, and our Plague Doctor got focused. Once we get to the boss though, we don't really have a problem. The boss has a sidekick named Wilbur who marks you, which then leads the Swine Prince to focus you. That can easily be negated by a character with guard, or the Arbalist moves Rally and Flare as it clears marks. But we do this the old-fashioned way and kill the Swine Swine Prince without a problem, and then take down Wilbur right after. We finish exploring the dungeon to get more heirlooms and gold, and right before leaving, we get close to an affliction again on the Plague Doctor, but do get away safely and end with 12,000 gold and a good amount of heirlooms again. Week 16 goes by, another week with no... Oh, wait, there is a Jester, but they're level 0, so we don't take them. You know, we're not taking many level 0s at this point. After rejecting the Jester, we almost trade all of the heirlooms into portraits so I could buy the bank, but I decided to wait just a tad longer as I wanted a little bit more money. I decided to do a medium weld mission to get a Highwayman trinket that boosts their dodging. We bring a Shield Breaker, Man-at-Arms, Crusader, and Arbalist. A comp that has small heals but can damage the front and back line easily, and we beat it without any problems. Week 17 and still no level 1 Jester, but we do recruit a Hellion as I recently upgraded the roster size to 21 as it doesn't cost portraits, which is the heirloom needed for the bank. But I decided to say screw it and trade almost all my heirlooms and spend most of our money on the bank so we can finally have interest. With our little money, we are now going to bring an antiquarian on a mission just to make some money. But the bad news is all my healers are close to level 3, so I decided to bring my lowest level vessel and hope they don't go to level 3 from a medium mission. I spent almost all of our money on prep items, so we really need a successful mission here. We also brought a Hellion and a Highwayman for really good damage all around, and it was a very successful mission again. Most of the way through, the stress levels were pretty low and the Hellion and Highwayman were killing everything, thanks to the Hellion's versatile moves like Iron Swan that can easily hit the back line while in position 1. We finished the mission with over 22,000 gold and 0 afflictions to worry about, but one of our vessels is now level 3, so we can't use them for any more of the remaining level 1 bosses, but that's okay. And week 18, we get a Jester in the stagecoach again, but they're level 0 again. The good news though, there was a level 1 occultist in there, so we decided to scoop them up since most of our healers are almost level 3, and we still have 5 level 1 bosses to beat. Speaking of, we decided to go fight the Prophet next, who you can only hit in the 4 spots, so you need to bring some backline damage. We decided to bring a Hellion again for the main damage, a Man-at-Arms to guard anyone who gets targeted by the Prophet because they have a move 1 or 2 characters to get hit by his next move called Rubble of Ruin, and having a guard by the Man-at-Arms will help tank the damage as the Man-at-Arms gains protection on whoever they guard. Now, to also help with guarding and damage and stress heal, I'm bringing a Houndmaster. They can do everything well against the Prophet, and just like the Man-at-Arms, the Houndmaster can guard with the move Guard Dog, but instead of buffing their protection, it buffs their dodge, which is still very useful for this fight. And then of course for healing, we have our new occultist who can still deal some damage to the back, but their main focus is healing. We give heroes their trinkets as always and send them on their way. The dungeon as a whole goes very smoothly, but our Man-at-Arms stress level does get a little high. Even camping doesn't really bring the stress down, as we had to stress everybody out a little bit to prevent a nighttime ambush with the occultist, and we also buffed the Hellion's damage thanks to the occultist again, and then we buffed the party's dodge and crit rate thanks to the Man-at-Arms. And then the Prophet fight was really easy. Lucky for me, they kept targeting my Man-at-Arms, so I was able to bolster easily to buff everyone's dodge more and get riposte up. With the Prophet focusing the Man-at-Arms, it allowed the Houndmaster and Hellion to easily bring them down, while the Occultist could debuff and mark them with Vulnerability Hex, which lowers the target's dodge. Overall, it was an easy fight like most of these level 1 bosses. With the mission complete, our Houndmaster was now level 3 as well, so I didn't have a Houndmaster until I decided to do level 3 missions, unless one shows up in the stagecoach. And on week 19, we didn't have much to choose from in the stagecoach, but I decided to take a level 0 vessel, as I'd feel better having at least one more healer, since we still have 4 bosses to take down, and all of our healers are really close to level 3 besides that newly acquired occultist. I decided to go out on a medium mission with a new vessel, a shield breaker, Man-at-Arms, and a Hellion. Nothing really important happened, it was just a medium mission. No afflictions, 15,000 gold, and her shield breaker's now almost level 3. Also, it was a medium mission in the Warrens, which opened up the second boss there, the Incoherent Flesh. And to start week 20, I looked to see no Jester still, but I decided to increase my roster size again and the amount of characters that show up. I gotta get a Jester eventually. Going into week 20, I decide we'll go kill that freshly spawned Flesh boss, and we bring a Hellion again. They're just too good. A Plague Doctor, as the Flesh is moderately weak to Blight. A Grave Robber, for some reason, I don't know why I brought them. I know they're good, but I am just using them incorrectly to start this run. And then we bring a Vessel for heals. No stress heal on the team, but that hasn't been a problem yet. I love jinxing myself. Our path to the boss wasn't the easiest, and we had pretty high stress on the Plague Doctor and the Vessel. But Campin was able to bring it down a little bit before the main event. Now, the flesh has multiple forms, all with different attacks, and every turn it transforms into multiple different things. Some of these forms have some very annoying attacks that can deal a lot of damage, but all of them are weak to bleed and blight. In reality, I should have brought a flagellant to easily bleed them as well. The battle wasn't going the best for me. All of my characters were about half health, and the flesh stunned my vessel, making sure we can't heal. I kept blighting it for good damage over time, but they kept on attacking my vessel and Hellion. My Hellion eventually ends up on death's door and needs to heal themselves for their turn, and my vessel had to keep team healing up, so the amount of health everyone was getting was only about 3 HP or so. My vessel was next on the death's door, and before they can even get an attack off, they get hit again by the flesh and don't even survive one death's door. So we lose the newly recruited vessel after one mission, but the flesh dies soon after. All right, so now we're 20 weeks in. Bad news, we have 4 deaths already. But the good news is we have 5 level 1 bosses defeated, and we've built the bank, which means we're gonna get a lot more money from interest. Unlike the real world. All right, we're into the 20s, and week 21 begins with us taking another vessel as we just lost one to the last boss. And lucky me, they were level 1. Now, week 21 is where I finally decided to open up the Crimson Courtyard, as every week before this, our stress relief in town was lowered due to not doing this mission. Opening the courtyard up is one of 4 needed missions in a successful blood moon in my eyes, with 3 of the missions containing very strong bosses, with the Baron, the Viscount, and the Countess. The courtyard dungeons are also very long, but always stay the same. So I'll be honest, I'm looking at a map when I do them so I don't get lost. I've beaten all the bosses a couple times in previous runs, so I don't count it as cheated. Now, for this first courtyard mission, we brought a Hellion, a Highwayman, Man-at-Arms, and a Vessel. We had 2 characters with riposte and a lot of good damage, but no stress here, so we have to be careful. The stress really isn't too bad, as I'm able to defeat all the enemies pretty easily. But in this first mission where we need to activate 3 curios, 2 of them are easy to get, but one of them is hidden behind a mini-boss, and that's who we have to worry about. I won't lie, my previous Blood Moon attempt, I did a very stupid thing and brought 4 level 0 characters on this mission and lost everyone. This mini boss is a crocodile that has high dodge, it moves around all 4 spots, can heal pretty well, and does a lot of damage due to buffing themselves. Normally, I'd bring a flagellant to the courtyard due to all the enemies being weak to bleed. I wanted a lot of riposte, and I wanted the move Bolster from the Man-at-Arms, which buffs your entire team's dodge and stress gains. With that, the Hellion is also able to buff themselves with one of their moves. We're easily able to beat the crocodile. We even get a nice trinket after the battle. If you don't know, the Crimson Court has a lot of nice trinkets. But after the fight, we activate the last curio and leave the courtyard with no harm done. Thank God. I hate those alligators. After one stressful mission, week 22 is a simple one. As usual, we find our goon squad and upgrade their moves and armor as we need to. We have a little over 20,000 gold, which isn't too bad. As long as we're making more than we're spending, the bank is being utilized well. This week, nothing bad happened. I will say I didn't bring a good squad, as I brought a Leper, Man-at-Arms, Grave Robber, and Vessel, and our Man-at-Arms did end up getting an affliction. Like I said, this is a goon squad. I say this is a bad team because we struggled to consistently hit the backline, and I wasn't properly utilizing the Grave Robber to their fullest potential yet. But I'll learn that lesson later down the line. We're lucky we got away with 0 death, but in the end, we did gain 1 vampire. And if you don't know what a vampire is, it's from the Crimson Courtyard enemies. After doing that first mission, those enemies can spawn everywhere now, and they can infect you with the Crimson Curse. If that happens, you need to periodically feed the infected hero blood, which you can find. And if you kill one of the 3 main bosses, everybody gets cured from the Crimson Curse for a short period of time. Week 23, and... oh my god, give me a Jester, please! I need some stress heal, not these level 0 bums. Yep. Still no Jester. But the good news is the Hag boss in the Weld opened up from our previous mission, and you know me, I like killing bosses, so we make a squad for this one. A Hag is a boss who hides in the back 2 spots, so you need to make sure to bring characters who can deal backline damage. But she can also throw your characters into her pot and make them take damage every turn until the pot is broken. I'll be honest, sometimes I just ignore the pot if they throw a certain character in, but I needed a squad that could hit the back hard. Now, every character on my team was basically level 2 besides an occultist, so I was definitely bringing them for heals. We also brought a flagellant as well for good backline damage over time with bleed, an antiquarian so we can buff dodge and make a little extra extra money, and I'll say I don't like bringing antiquarians on boss levels. I'll just put that out there. And then we also decide to bring a shield breaker, which is risky on a medium mission, I'd say, because if you don't know, the shield breakers have a chance to get nightmares when you camp with them, which results in your party fighting snakes and your shield breaker gaining a lot of stress. You gain trinkets every time you win, and there's only 7 nightmare battles, but it's always a risk bringing a shield breaker on a medium mission. They just deal really good damage overall, so I felt like they would be very necessary. And of course, we get nightmares on this mission, and they added so much stress to everyone. The mission was going well until then, but it definitely will make the hag a little bit harder. And let me tell you, the start of this hag fight was not going my way. I'll admit, the squad I have is not really ideal for the hag. I was buffing her dodge in hopes to not have anyone thrown into the pot, but of course 3 times in a row my shield breaker gets thrown in, and they're my main source of damage, so I have a hard time dealing damage to the hag and keeping the shield breaker, well, alive. The 3rd time they're thrown into the pot, I need to accept that they're going to be on death's door. Lucky for me, when that death's door does happen, the occultist can heal them instantly. And then the occultist gets thrown into the pot, and I decided to focus the boss now that I have my shield breaker back, and surprisingly, it works well. The shield breaker does good damage, the flagellant adds good damage over time, the antiquarian does literally nothing, and the occultist goes on death's door. We escaped with 0 afflictions and go into week 24 with almost 40,000 gold and a very nice town event where the sanitarium in the Hamlet is free, which allows us to remove negative quirks, lock in positive quirks, and remove diseases all for free. Going into week 24, we decided to recruit a level 0 plague doctor since jesters still don't exist, and I felt a plague doctor will be good on the sunken crew, which is one of the few level 1 bosses I have left, as my only other plague doctor was level 3. We bring the plague doctor on a simple Cove mission with a highwayman, man-at-arms, and an occultist. I say it's a simple mission, but the new plague doctor almost got an affliction instantly. But lucky for me, everyone else stayed sane, and the occultist did a 54 crit heal at one point just to show off. And then once the mission's done, the occultist is level 3, so they're done with missions for the time being. And then going into week 25, we finally got a jester to appear, and they're level 1 at that to save a little bit of money on upgrades. And then with that, I decided to even take a level 0 bounty hunter, as I didn't have a lot of characters left that could do damage to the front of the line easily, that were level 1 or low level 2. Plus, the bounty hunter can easily move backline enemies to have them be easier to kill. I felt 2 bounty hunters was a good amount. We send the 2 new recruits back into the Cove with a highwayman and a vessel. And we don't have the most consistent backline damage with this squad, but with the jester, I felt confident that stress levels would not get out of hand, and I was right. Sorry, a lot of weeks there just isn't much to talk about in the dungeon. Bounty hunter can move, stun, and damage enemies really well. Vessel can stun and heal everyone. Jester stress heals, buffs, and does the occasional damage, while the highwayman does good damage all around and has riposte. Nice and clean dungeon. With week 26, we're back to having no good recruits, but the first fight for the drunken crew unlocked, so we made a squad to go there. The drunken crew is another annoying boss that can immobilize one of your party members, and with them immobilized, the boss heals every turn. So you need to constantly make sure that you're killing the enemy that the boss spawns. We're bringing a plague doctor to play in our backline so they can easily blight the boss, as they're very weak to blight, a jester for stress heal and buffs along with some damage, an occultist for heals and extra damage against Cove enemies, and then a bounty hunter for great frontline damage on the enemies spawned by the boss and the boss itself. We were able to easily clear the dungeon, and before the boss, we camped and very much buffed the bounty hunter and only the bounty hunter, and we're ready to go. Oh, our jester became a vampire also before the fight. That's fine. The drunken crew itself, though, should be fine as long as the plague doctor doesn't get moved to the front, and they get moved to the front immediately. I have to spend a couple turns moving the plague doctor back slowly, and in that time, the bounty hunter gets immobilized, and that's most of the fight. Honestly, this boss fight is my least favorite, along with the Siren. And of course, my plague doctor got moved again, so I got stuck in some bad positions with them. Not being able to kill the spawned enemy fast enough, and the crew resisting blight a lot somehow, it was horrible. But after about 10 minutes of battling and slowly chipping away health, we finally get a big crit with the bounty hunter, and after that we start chipping away. Blight's hidden, enemies missing, our bounty hunter's abusive, and we finally win. Going through all that trouble and we only get 1 affliction, that's a major victory in my book. With the drowned crew defeated, we only have 1 more level 1 boss to kill, and they're hiding out in the Weld, which only has level 3 missions available this week. We recruit another level 1 jester quickly and make a squad for our first level 3 mission of the run. We bring a Hellion, a Shieldbreaker, a Houndmaster, and a Vessel. The main difference in level 3 missions is a few new enemies in every area. Of course, enemies in general are stronger, but so are your characters with buffs and level upgrades. Of course, with a level 3 mission, you also get better loot, and since we have a good amount of level 3 characters, I felt we would be fine in our first mission at level 3, and we were totally fine. We had a couple close calls in terms of stress, but being able to camp helped put any worries to bed, and we easily won the mission. I personally like bringing a shield breaker to the world, as the world has a couple enemies that have high protection, and the shield breakers move pierce or ignore the protection, so they do full damage in any position. Shield breaker is super good. And the sanitarium's being free again with week 28, so that's a good way to start it. We've removed some diseases and quirks again, recruit nobody because everybody's useless, and the final level 1 boss has finally spawned, which is the 8-pounder. This boss can be very hard if you don't have a character that can easily kill backline enemies in one turn. The 8-pounder itself will only spawn reinforcements unless you fail to kill the matchman who lights the cannon, and if that hits you, well, you're in trouble. With that in mind, I like bringing a Hellion for Iron Swan to hit the backline, and if it bleeds, to hit the person in the 3rd spot. I usually also bring an Arbalist, as they're very good with damage in the backline as well, and they can heal and do bonus damage to mark targets. The 8-pounder is literally resistant to everything, so marking it is the best way to get it down easily. This boss fight is a very tedious one, but can be very easy if you're patient. And with marking being so good, I decided to bring the bounty hunter from the previous boss fight, as they can do bonus damage to mark targets. And they're not level 3. And then, of course, I brought a vessel to heal everyone. Really, the dungeon was easy. We just killed everyone. And then when it came to camping, I buffed the Hellion and prevented a nighttime ambush. And really, this boss was so simple. Every turn, the Hellion killed the matchman, the Arbalist and the bounty hunter marked and damaged the cannon, and the vessel healed. We had 0 problems and finished the mission easily thanks to the bounty hunter and Arbalist. Now it's week 29, and I decided to get the other DLC opened, which is the Farmstead, which also has 3 different missions, and all of them are basically endless fighting. This first Farmstead mission, we brought a highwayman, bounty hunter, jester, and vessel. Really, this was just a level 1 mission, and all 4 of these characters needed to get to level 3 faster, so I felt it was a good time to finally do this. It's just endless battles, not really much to say. The team did really good. Everyone kicked butt. Some enemies can cause stress and some damage, but it's really not that hard. And after this first mission is complete, there's a new boss that roams around the hallways every single week in one certain area, and that's the Thing from the Stars, who I want to fight, just not right away. Week 30 begins with a town event where all idle highwaymen will gain 1 resolve level next week, meaning if I don't bring my highwayman on the next mission, they level up, which is good as I have a level 2 and 3 highwayman at the moment. Now on to the mission. I don't have many healers left at level 1 or 2, but I have a lot of characters to get leveled up, so I bring a leper, a man-at-arms, a jester, and an antiquarian. I decide to try and buff the antiquarian to be a healer with the move Fortifying Vapors, as it heals 1 HP normally. I give them 2 healing trinkets, and it went decent. We did end up getting an affliction at the very end on our leper, as we didn't have any backline damage, but the healing somehow managed to keep everyone alive. I would not recommend trying antiquarian as the main healer. 90% of the time, it will not go well for you. Not a bad 10 weeks if you ask me. We didn't have any deaths, so the death count is still only 4. We got both DLCs open with the Farmstead and the Crimson Courtyard, and we finished off all the level 1 bosses. On top of that, the bank is still making us money. But to start off week 31, I decided to do an antiquarian money run with a bounty hunter, flagellant, and a cultist. We have more healers this time. I'm not concerned. Another reason for this squad was trying to get them to level 3 as well. I had 60,000 gold thanks to the bank, but with multiple characters still needing to level up and every level costing more money, I know I need a little bit more money to easily be worry-free for the rest of the run. This week also included another collector fight, which you can see how that goes. What's up, Splitso Bear? Oh, you gotta be f***ing kidding me, really?
And made merciless.
Really? The collector right now? Really? Collector right now? Are you kidding me? This is not the time for the collector. Oh,
Ground quakes.
wait, maybe I can stun him. He has a 50% chance. I can't stun him. Great. Gotta be kidding me. Can I move him at least? I can move him. I'll mark him. What's up, Shiny? This f***er. My last run, Shiny, I had this guy show up in literally 3 dungeons in a row, and it was the most annoying thing ever. Having him pop up at 3 dungeons in a row. Collect call. That should be fine. Oh, you're going first? I like this. Pull him forward. Perfect! We might be able to kill him one freaking try. We might be able to kill him instantly, actually. Holy he's gonna die. Oh, he's already dead. Bye. Bye, Collector. It was nice knowing you. Yeah, that was the best Collector fight I've ever had. But thanks to the Collector, a secret room, and just the Antiquarian, we ended this mission with over 30,000 gold collected and 2 of my characters getting up to level 3, while my Occultist and Antiquarian were almost level 2. We'll be seeing more of them for sure. Now on to week 32. We don't recruit anyone as they're all level 0, but at this point we have almost everything we need since nobody has been dying, but some characters like the Houndmaster, Jester, Vessel, Highwayman, or Man-at-Arms would be good to have an extra one of, just because of how much I end up using them and how much utility they have. But with that said, this next week we bring a Crusader, a Cultist, Jester, and a Plague Doctor into the Cove for the next mission. I usually don't like having a Crusader in the 1 or 2 spot because of the move Holy Lance that they have. It moves them up 1 spot and can only be used in the back 2 spots, but it also deals a crazy amount of damage. But since we have a Plague Doctor and Jester in the back, I felt I needed some more frontline damage. By Leper being stress healed in the Hamlet, the Crusader was the best choice. And then of course we have the Occultist that can heal us from any position, and in position 2, they can still stun the enemies with the move Hands from the Abyss. Overall, this mission was like most missions, very easy. It was only a level 1 dungeon, and with plenty of stress heal with the Jester and the Crusader, damage over time with the Plague Doctor, and good stuns from the Occultist and Crusader as well, we were easily able to clear through this and get a little over 10,000 gold. Next is week 33, and we decided to do another level 3 mission and bring a Hellion, Plague Doctor, Houndmaster, and Vessel. This time I'm playing the Plague Doctor in the 2 spot because of the move Incision, which makes the enemies bleed. Along with that, we can still use one of the best moves in the game, which is Disorient and Blast. It stuns, shuffles the enemies, and clears all the corpses. The main reason we went for this level 3 mission also is for a Plague Doctor trinket called the Bloody Herb, which boosts their bleed chance along with accuracy and damage with melee attacks. One of the Plague Doctor's best trinkets, especially if you're playing them up close like I tend to do. This mission was a success overall, but we did end up getting the Crimson Curse on one of our characters and a good amount of stress on the Vessel due to the Houndmaster not being a consistent stress healer as compared to the Jester, but still 0 deaths and a great trinket required, and thanks to it being a town event mission, our next mission, if we go to the Warrens again, will give us 15% more damage and 33% more resolve XP for the entire quest. But unlucky for me, we didn't have a boss spawn in the Warrens, so I decided to ignore it and go do a long Cove mission. It's a level 3 mission, so I bring an Arbalist and an Occultist for the backline, good heals and good damage against backline enemies, and then a level 3 Man-at-Arms and a Highwayman for riposte and good frontline damage. Along with that, the Man-at-Arms can buff us and stun really well. Overall, had good confidence with the team. I sadly had to spend a lot of money on upgrades for armor and moves, but that's to be expected the first time you take a newly leveled character out. The only negative thing about this squad is no stress heal, but with it being a long mission, you get 2 camps instead of 1, so I felt if I could time my camps well and focus on stress healing instead of buffing, we should survive. And it was working for the most part, but after the second camp, stress was starting to build up, so we were relying on crits to stress heal us, and we came close to having 100 stress on the Occultist and Man-at-Arms at times, but we were able to finish the mission and get about 30,000 gold from it. So overall, a successful run. Now, I keep talking about gold, but heirlooms are something I haven't talked much about this run, but I wasn't super focused on them. Throughout the run, I'm upgrading the Stagecoach, Blacksmith, and Guild mostly. And thanks to the previous mission, we now had a level 4 Arbalist, and the Siren had respawned for a rematch as a level 3 boss. And if you don't know the difference between these bosses with different levels, allow me to quickly explain. There's 8 main bosses in the game, as you know, and every boss has a different variation where they get stronger depending on the level of the mission, with level 1 being the easiest, of course, and level 5 being the hardest. Every level up, the boss gains buffs to stats like health, dodge, and speed, and also gains buff to resistances like bleed, plight, and stun. Now, if the Siren's spawning already, I decided to just ignore it for the time being so I can level up some more characters with a long level 1 mission in the ruins, because I still had some characters I needed to get to level 3 before I started doing some level 3 bosses. I bring a Leper for good frontline damage, an Occultist for heals and stun, Jester for stress heals and occasional damage, and a Plague Doctor for good damage over time with blight moves as always. Now, this is a good team, but I ran into a Shambless Altar together, and me being the overconfident player I am, I decided to use a torch on it and fight the Shambler again. I had one Shambler fight earlier and I ran away from it, so I didn't really talk about it. But here, I'll explain what the Shambler does. The Shambler spawns enemies that get buffed every single turn they attack, and eventually will end up doing a lot of damage. And on top of that, the Shambler itself also does a good amount of damage, but more so, they do a lot of stress to you. My plan was to have the Jester buff us a bit and rely on the Leper mostly to attack. And let me tell you, that did not work at all. The Shambler was constantly moving our team around and constantly spawning enemies. It made it very hard for the Leper because they would mainly focus on the spawned enemies. I was heavily relying on the Plague Doctor's Blight ability as well, and those were the things that definitely saved us. The Occultist was able to get some decent damage overall, but at the end of the day, we had 4 afflictions and a dead Shambler. It was still somewhat early in the dungeon, so I camped immediately after to try and lower some stress and to see if the Jester could cure any afflictions. I will say I was not able to cure anything. With everyone bickering at each other and raising stress almost every single turn, it was nearly impossible to bring anyone's stress level to 0, as I couldn't focus one person at a time since everyone was getting super close to 200 stress, which would instantly put them on death's door. Except the Leper. At one point they were down to like 30 stress somehow, but even with the second camp, it was too much stress to handle. But I keep the dungeon going since I believed we could get out. Everyone but the Leper at some point had a heart attack to get thrown on the death's door, and that caused us to have a few close calls with stress. But at the end of the dungeon, we were able to complete this long mission with 0 deaths somehow. After that horrible mission, we start week 36 by de-stressing everyone that was on that previous mission. One other reason I didn't quit that last mission was because I knew a boss would spawn if I was able to complete it, and I wasn't wrong. The Necromancer spawned, and now I had 2 bosses I could fight. And I decided to go fight the Necromancer, and I made a rather interesting squad for it. Knowing that the Necromancer moves around quite a bit with spawned enemies, I decided to bring a shield breaker in the 1 spot, as they could easily damage any position, and Occultist in the 2 spot for heals and stuns, and then in the back 2 spots I had a Highwayman and a Crusader to play off each other, meaning I'd use Duelist Advance on the Highwayman, move them to the 3 spot, and gain Riposte. Then I'll use Holy Lance to move the Crusader back to the 3, and that would give me good damage overall. If I needed to heal or de-stress, I could use the Crusader for a turn, as the Highwayman can still do damage in the backline with moves like Wicked Slice, Open Vein, and Pistol Shot. This may look like a goon squad on paper, but it was working really well, and we didn't really have too much stress when it was time to camp, so I was able to buff the team. But we had to worry about the shield breaker's chance of having a nightmare and spawning snakes, and well, they spawned snakes. We were able to beat the snakes without much stress added to anyone except the shield breaker and a little bit of health loss. We could heal a little bit before the boss with our last remaining food. Now we get to the Necromancer slightly weak, but the combination of Holy Lance and Duelist Advance helped to make this fight very easily. We constantly had Riposte up, which was very helpful, as you can see, and then Holy Lance was doing about 20 damage every turn. On top of that, the Shield Breaker was getting some big crits and being able to hit them every time. I know some people panic when the Necromancer starts spawning enemies with stealth, but I just ignored them and hope they focus the Highwayman with Riposte or the Man-at-Arms if I brought them, and that usually works out for me. This fight was very simple, and we finished the mission with a little high stress on the Shield Breaker, but that's mostly because of snakes. Now, week 37 begins, and the brothel was locked because somebody was a little messy, if you know what I'm saying. Anyways, I decide we're going to do another boss fight since we have the Siren unlocked. I bring a Hellion for good damage in all positions, as always, a Bounty Hunter for good stun, movement, and damage, a Plague Doctor for good blight damage over time, and then a Vessel for heals. Of course, we don't have any stress heal, but this team is able to fight off most enemies, but we did have a close call with our Bounty Hunter getting that Death's Door at one point, but we were able to heal it easily. Even with the Death's Door, we push forward and eventually get to camp and recover some stress and get 1 buff onto the Hellion. Now, we're going into the Siren with 2 characters close to 50 stress, and you remember the moves of the Siren, right? She can seduce one of your characters to fight against you for a couple turns, so we need to watch out for that. The battle started out with the Hellion resisting the seduction, lucky me, and I decided to buff the Hellion some more with the Plague Doctor's move Emboldened Vapors, which buffs damage and speed for the entire battle, and it can be used twice. Remember that move as well. It's very useful this entire run. With the Hellion buff, we eventually land a giant crit, but the Siren eventually steals our Vessel, so we can't heal. Not the biggest deal in the world. They don't deal too much damage, and we slowly chip away the Siren's health, and then the Vessel comes back. Next, she seduces the Hellion away from us, which is a little scary considering how much I've buffed their damage. Lucky for me, they missed the 1 attack they got off on our Plague Doctor. The Hellion comes back and we slowly move them back into the attacking range, and we are so close to killing the Siren. And then she seduces the bounty hunter when we were one hit away from killing them. The bounty hunter then proceeds to put our plague doctor on the death's door with a crit. Thanks, bounty hunter. Luckily, they survive the death's door, and our Hellion is able to finish off the Siren next turn, and we just barely escape with 0 deaths once again. And with that mission, we have 4 more characters that are now level 4. Next, we have week 38, and I decided to bring a leper, flagellant, occultist, and antiquarian on a long mission. On paper, it doesn't look like the best squad, but the leper can stress heal themselves and does a lot of damage. Flagellant has good stress heal with endure, where they will take a teammate stress and apply it to themselves, which is very good because they also have 2 camping skills that remove 50 or 40 stress, so it's very easy to de-stress them. Occultist can heal us and do good overall damage when needed, and the antiquarian can make us rich. And that's basically it. I guess they can buff our dodge, but they're just here for money. And with it being a long mission, a lot happened, but not a lot to cover. We killed a lot of things, and thanks to the antiquarian, we were able to grab 50,000 gold thanks to not grabbing a single heirloom. But we needed a lot of money because we just spent a lot of money on armor upgrades. So thanks, antiquarian. Week 39, we try to do a money run again, but this time we really change it up. I bring a bounty hunter for the main damage, a vessel in the 2 spot for minimal heals and for some decent damage, an antiquarian for money and dodge buffs again, and an arbalist for more heals and good backline damage. I never played with a vessel in the 2 before, but they do have moves to play up front. I was confident this squad could handle a level 3 mission, and almost instantly we have 2 characters with a high amount of stress, and we eventually end up getting an affliction on the arbalist. We camp the de-stress, and then I realize I can't prevent a nighttime ambush, and of course we get ambushed. We survived it somehow even after our lineup getting messed up because of the ambush, and our arbalist stress levels are almost at heart attack levels thanks to the madman. God, I hate you, madman. My overconfidence thought we could survive, so we push forward, and then 2 battles later, we run into the funky bunch from the Crimson Courtyard. And our arbalist gets put on death's door thanks to bleed and blight, and then they refuse heals from the vessel and die immediately after. Which is upsetting, but hey, if you refuse heal and you're on death's door, you kind of deserve it. Once that death happens, afflictions start piling up like crazy, and we need to escape and accept that our 5th death had happened. So we just lost our arbalist, and week 40 starts, and oh lucky me, there's a level 2 arbalist waiting to join the squad. So we recruit them, and of course, to honor the latest arbalist that has fallen, we rename them after that arbalist. And with them being level 2, we need to do some level 1 missions eventually, but those level 1 missions are gonna have to wait because we have another boss to fight, and that's what we're gonna do. We're bringing a Hellion, a Flagellant, a Houndmaster, and a Vessel to fight the Swine King version number 2. The team overall has good damage, good bleed chance, and good heals and stress heal, so we shouldn't have much of a problem. We get to our camp easily with no stress and buff the Hellion up, but I forgot to prevent a nighttime ambush again and end up fighting some little bugs. Not a problem. We make it to the Swine King and are ready to fight. And this fight's a pretty easy one with the Swine King being so weak to bleed. We constantly attack them with the Flagellant to build bleed up. The Hellion also just attacks them. The Vessel heals, and the Houndmaster either guards or attacks. The reason we're guarding is if Wilbur marks any characters, the Swine King is more likely to attack them and deal a large amount of damage to them. But if we guard them with the Houndmaster, we have a high chance of dodging it since Guard Dog increases our dodge significantly. And with all that said, we beat the Swine King without a problem. Sure, we got hit a couple times, but it was never alarming, and beating them so easily allows us to go back in the dungeon to explore the last few rooms, which has a lot of battles, but we can easily handle it, and we end the dungeon with almost 20,000 gold and a good amount of heirlooms. On top of that, we get our first level 5 character with our Houndmaster. Oh, now they're not gonna go on any more level 3 missions, meaning I need to get another Houndmaster ASAP. Alright, we're 40 weeks in. We have all the level 1 bosses beat, as you know, and we beat 3 level 3 bosses in these past 10 weeks. We did add an extra death, bringing the death count up to 5, but I'll admit, a lot of those deaths are my fault. I've been playing a little carelessly. I'll stop playing that way in the next 60 weeks, but we're feeling really good overall, and the run is looking really good as well. And week 41 starts off gloriously as we finally recruit another Houndmaster. Level 1, but still, our only other Houndmaster was level 5. We needed this. And we still had a lot of characters at low levels, and to help that out, we brought a Man-at-Arms, Occultist, Plague Doctor, and Antiquarian on a mission to the Cove. I know we just got the Houndmaster, just let me have this, okay? Plus, I needed an Antiquarian because I needed more money. Upgrades are so dang expensive. Anyways, we easily survived the mission and got almost 25,000 gold and 3 more characters to level 3. And next week, I decided to recruit another level 1 character so I never get all my characters leveled up. But this time I recruit an Abomination as I didn't have one yet and I like collecting them all. I bring a very bad squad to this next week because I apparently never learned. We have a Houndmaster and an Abomination in the front, and a Jester and an Arbalist in the back. I have this weird squad because it's a level 1 mission and I don't have any more healers at level 1 or 2. We got to work with what we got. I didn't have a lot of confidence going into this mission, and of course we run into our good friend the Collector once again. But the team actually did really well. The Houndmaster marked the Collector and allowed the Arbalist to do a lot of damage when they attacked, as the Abomination and Jester could not hit them, and we killed them easily. The rest of the mission was easy, and we got our Jester to level 3. Next week is another anticlimactic one. As you notice, it's mostly just collecting stuff and trying to spawn bosses. We bring the Riposte brothers, a Jester, and an Occultist on a long mission. Don't want to bore you with the details too much. As always, this team kicked a lot of butt. We got almost 25,000 gold and none of the characters leveled up to 5 yet, which is good because I still have a handful of level 3 bosses to kill, and all of these characters will be useful in that. Now, week 44 spawns me 2 level 2 vessels, but sadly, I have a full team already. So I kick an Antiquarian to the curb and recruit a new vessel. But outside of the vessel recruitment, this week has another boss spawn, which is the level 3 flesh boss. I do have some nightmares about this boss since the last time, you know. Next. Oh, you. Oh my god. Yeah, but this time we're bringing the same team except a shield breaker instead of a grave robber. We clear the dungeon pretty easily until we find the flesh. But this time I decided to not camp because I did not want to risk injury from the potential shield breaker nightmares. We don't need the buffs too much with the Plague Doctor, as we're able to buff the Hellions damage and speed with Emboldened Vapors. And it instantly pays off with a 57 crit on the first turn. Now, you see, the reason I brought the shield breaker for this fight is a move called Impale, which can only be used in the one spot, but it does damage to all 4 enemies. And once it's level 3, it has a chance to blight. And since the flesh is one giant enemy that takes up 4 spots, all with a different hitbox that share the same amount of health, a move like Impale is incredibly powerful, especially since all 4 of them can be blighted since the move is leveled up. We did take a good amount of damage here and there, but with some good dodges and damage from the Hellion and shield breaker, along with great blight damage from the Plague Doctor, the second version of the flesh was easily beaten. After the boss, we explore the rest of the dungeon to get as many goodies as we can before leaving, and once we're out, we get our second level 5 character with the shield breaker. Our Hellion and Vessel from that mission were also 1 mission away from being level 5. Now, for week 45, I decided it was time to go back to the Crimson Courtyard and try to kill the Baron. If you don't know much about this area, all the levels are the same every time you do a run. You have a set path you need to go that includes collecting keys and retracing your steps. I've killed the Baron multiple times, and I decided that I was going to look at a map to try and clear this mission in 1 week, as I don't have a lot of weeks to spare to go through this mission multiple times. Courtyard missions are long. I know some will say that's cheating looking at a map, but I say, shut up. This is my run. I've gotten lost on this mission before, and it sucked. I don't want to do that again. I will say, I felt I had a really strong team for the Courtyard. We had a Flagellant who can heal themselves, a stress heal, and cause bleed to almost every enemy. Highwayman who can riposte and deal a crap ton of damage while having high dodge, a Jester who can help clean up and make enemies bleed, along with stress healing us, and a Vessel to heal us and even stun these giant ugly bugs, because these George Washington looking freaks are very annoying. And overall, the mission was going pretty well, and then we got to the required mini boss fight. This is the only courtyard of the 3 bosses that has this mini boss, and it's the Crocodile. And honestly, we kind of killed it. The Vessel went on death's door, but we were able to recover, and we even got a really good grave robber trinket, which will come in handy later. It was actually the next fight that screwed me up. These goddamn ugly bugs. They crit hit my Vessel to send them to death's door, and of course they also got the bleed on them, and of course my Vessel died instantly, and with it my dreams of killing the Baron in 1 week. We somehow kill the bugs with our remaining squad, but with only 3 members, we're forced to retreat. The good thing about the courtyard is the next time we come here, our progress will be saved from where we left off. Week 45 gives us our 6th death of the run. Now we take a week off from the courtyard to mentally recover from the loss of a vessel and decide to do a level 1 mission in the Warrens. We still have some characters to level up. We bring a vessel, a Houndmaster, Abomination, and a newly recruited Shieldbreaker since we had an open roster spot. Nothing else to really say. This squad easily did what they needed to do. We had good damage all around and good heals and some stress heal. We did get 3 diseases at the end somehow, but that's what you get when you go to the Warrens. Now, with our old squad from the courtyard rested up, I decide to go there again with the intent of beating the Baron. We bring the exact same squad as before, except of course it's a new vessel. Also, it turns out the Baron mission has 2 crocodile fights, as you need to retrieve all these different colored keys to open all these gates to advance the mission. So we're killing everything and eventually stumble upon our next mini boss. This croc fight definitely had some very close calls as our jester ended the fight on death's door, and we had 2 afflictions, but we did end up receiving a very good highwayman trinket from our efforts. The party was beat up for sure, but we were motivated to keep on going. I worked towards getting the jester's affliction down by getting their stress to 0 and even find a couple campsites from Curios, because if you didn't know, you can get a free camp in the courtyard by using a shovel on these wine bottles. Always bring lots of shovels. After fighting the last 20 stress for what seems like forever, we finally get rid of the jester's affliction. Granted, the flagellant is close to having a heart attack and my vessel now has an affliction, but hey, the jester's back to 0. This should definitely be a fun little boss fight up ahead. Now, the way the Baron is set up is he hides in one of these 4 little egg sacs, and what they do is prevent healing while they're up. You attack one of the sacs and it will have the Baron or another Crimson Courtyard enemy. The eggs don't go away if you don't find the Baron, so the best strategy for me is always trying to get the Baron last so I can easily heal. Granted, it's all luck. This happens about 3 times in the fight. In the first phase, I attack 2 of the sacks and am lucky with the Baron not being in them. Eventually, he will run out of patience, but then when that happens, all the egg sacs go away. They attack 3 times in a turn, but it's weak to bleed. So I make sure the flagellant is constantly making them bleed and constantly making sure Rapace is up from the highwayman, as all that extra damage definitely helps. Rapace is the main reason I'm even able to get to phase 2, and it's the start of phase 2 I'm able to remove the vessel's affliction as well. Good job, Jester. I'm not as lucky as the first act though, and find the Baron very quickly. But after a few turns, we get rid of all the little egg sacs and can heal again. I was getting very lucky with all the dodges, and with buffing the team with the Jester, we're able to get a lot of crits. And we start Act 3 with low health on the vessel, and I can't heal. I cannot afford to lose another vessel. And we find the Baron very fast again, and I decide to just hard focus them and try to kill them as they were at 56 health. Flagellant provides big bleed damage, and one giant Rapace later, the Baron falls. Right as our vessel gets thrown on the death's door. We survived the first of 3 major courtyard missions, and with this mission, our highwayman and flagellant both get to level 5, while our vessel and jester get to level 4. And the good news is that with this first mission done, all of the vampires are cured, until we run into more enemies from the courtyard later down the line. Now, with week 48, we decide to take some risk and do another level 1 mission. Yeah, it doesn't sound risky, but trust me, it is. We still need to level up our newest Shieldbreaker, along with our Abomination, Houndmaster, and Arbalist. We go to the Cove since a boss will spawn very soon, and there was a chance to get the hallway boss a thing from the stars, which in reality would not really be good with our squad. But I was a little tipsy while playing these next few weeks, so the best decisions were not made. But this mission went very well. We easily beat it without a problem, and even in the middle of the dungeon, we got very lucky with a madman fight and ended up with a very nice trinket. If you don't know, there's a 4% chance to get one of these 3 trinkets once you kill a madman, and you can only have 1 of each in your inventory at once, so finding one is a very nice bonus for a level 1 dungeon. Thank you, madman, but I still hate you. Now with week 49, we do another level 1 mission, but this time it's a medium mission, and we go where the thing from the stars may be again. We bring a Shieldbreaker, Abomination, Grave Robber, and a vessel. We get the quest goal complete very quickly as it was a Gatherum-esque mission, and I decided to explore a little bit more to get as much stuff as possible, and guess who shows up? The Collector. Again. But he literally dies in 2 turns again, thanks to a good stun and some big crits. And then 2 steps later, the thing from the stars decides to show up as well. They're more of a challenge as they can stress your team out and inflict some nasty blight, as well as having high protection. But luckily for me, I have 2 moves that go through high protection with the Shieldbreaker and Grave Robber. and with that we're able to beat them without much of a problem. The rest of the dungeon was a cakewalk, and our vessel and grave robber get to level 3 while the shield breaker and abomination are still level 2. Then week 50 starts off pretty good as the sanitarium is free, so we remove some bad quirks for free, and with our previous embark, the second version of the hag fight is unlocked in the weld, so we prepare for a team to go fight. I decided the Hellion, Man-at-Arms, Houndmaster, and Occultist. Overall, good damage, reliable heal from all slots if the Occultist gets scooped up by the hag, and a stress heal from the Houndmaster. Also, you have to remember, this Houndmaster is still only level 2, but I was also a little tipsy still, so I clearly wasn't making the right choices. But we'll see how it goes. Now, the first half of the mission wasn't a problem at all. We camped to do some team buffs with the Man-at-Arms and buff the Hellion, as the Hellion is always the main source of damage if they're on the team, and we go and get ready to fight the hag. Our Occultist attacks first and is able to mark and debuff the hag, but then they get thrown into a pot. Our level 2 Houndmaster gets a 39 crit off, and after that crit, I decide to just ignore my Occultist boiling alive and focus on killing the hag, as they don't do a lot of damage overall. It's not looking too good for us, as the hag keeps using the move Taste the Stew, which heals her every time she uses it, and after every move, the Occultist is taking 3 damage, but eventually our Hellion decides to get a big 34 crit that allows for the Houndmaster to finish them off right as the Occultist gets the Death's Door. Easy fight. We also end up exploring the rest of the dungeon before leaving, as I had confidence we wouldn't lose anyone. And we didn't. On Blood Moon, you gotta explore as much as you can to try to get as many items as possible for maximum gold and heirlooms. 50 weeks in, we're halfway done with the run. We added an extra death, bringing it up to 6. But that's statistically not bad for halfway done with the run. We have 5 of the level 3 bosses done, out of 8 if you haven't been paying attention. And we have 1 of the 3 courtyard bosses finally done. Those things suck. Overall, we're feeling pretty good. We're on week 51, and at this point, we have 5 level 5 characters, which means we will be getting close to some champion level missions, which is where things could start getting really bad. But to start the 50s, we do a nice little level 1 mission with a shield breaker, abomination, jester, and an arbalist, because they all need to be leveled up. We didn't have a true healer with this squad, but we buffed the arbalist healing skill with trinkets, and that actually worked out pretty well. We cleared the mission with a few bumps and bruises, but easily beat it. And with it beaten, the arbalist and abomination are finally level 3. Now, we go back to our level 3 missions with a long mission in the ruins. We bring a leper, abomination again, plague doctor, and a vessel. Blight is stronger than bleed in the ruins because you fight so many goddamn skeletons, which is why we have the plague doctor and abomination. Our first step into this dungeon, our good friend the collector decides to make another appearance. Let me tell you, this collector fight did not go well. The first move, the collector resisted my stun attempt, which made my leper basically useless later on because the collector moved all the way to the back line. And then after a lot of misses and a death's door for my plague doctor, we're able to beat the collector thanks to mostly blight and 1 really good crit from the abomination. I should have known this dungeon was going to be brutal based off my team comp in that 1 collector fight. And after that, it was just fight after fight after fight. We were winning, but oh my god, the stress was just building up on my vessel. And of course, early on, we get an affliction, which eventually leads to a heart attack, which eventually leads to a death. Yeah, we lost another vessel, and we lost them because I didn't have consistent damage in the back, which is vital in the ruins. You can't rely on blight damage over time, especially if you don't have a stress healer. We escaped after the battle where we lost the vessel, but it was a failed mission. Now we're up to 7 deaths total and still a lot to do. We decide next will be the sunken crew again. We bring a bounty hunter, abomination, occultist, and a plague doctor. I want to get all these bosses done ASAP. We have no stress heal again. We'll see if I learn my lesson. Now, my plan with the drunken crew usually relies on good blight damage, but I feel the transformed abomination can be very good against the boss. Being able to buff while we camp could also really benefit the abomination. Sadly, we need to spend most of our camping on stress heal, as the abomination got focused, so we didn't have any buffs for the boss. This boss started off pretty rough, as blight was the main source of damage. Once we had a party member immobilized, after every turn the crew was getting 6 health back, so I had to focus a lot of damage from the bounty hunter on freeing whoever was immobilized. But thanks to the occultist for marking the crew, once I was actually able to hit them with the bounty hunter, it was a huge 48 crit, which seemed to really put things in my favor, as after that they were not able to keep up with the damage we were doing. We did get an affliction with the abomination, but the crew goes down without any other problems, and that's the end of that week. Next is week 54, and nothing special really happened. Medium mission in the ruins with a bounty hunter, occultist, houndmaster, and plague doctor. See, I'm learning to bring more range and a stress healer in the ruins. It was a normal quest, some stress and close calls with afflictions, but we ended it with 0 deaths and 0 afflictions, so it's a win. Now, week 55 started off quite well as the game decided to offer me a level 2 jester, and I already have a hard time saying no to jesters, so we scooped them up. But the next mission is a level 3 boss fight, as that previous level 1 mission spawned the Prophet, and if you remember them, they play in the 4 spot, so good backline damage is vital. I decided to bring a shield breaker and Houndmaster for good backline damage and just damage everywhere, an occultist for heals and even more damage if needed, and a man-at-arms for riposte and protection. If you remember the Prophet, they have that nasty rubble of ruin, which just drops debris all over the marked target. The man-at-arms guarding that target can tank that move with a lot of protection. I felt really confident with this team, but the downside was my shield breaker. They were only level 2, and this was a level 3 mission, and it showed. The shield breaker got very focused by stress-inducing enemies and was very close to 100 stress and also close to death's door, so I had to camp to de-stress and risk the chance of having some nightmares. And of course, they had nightmares. Right before the boss, now we have this extra snake fight, which throws our shield breaker onto death's door almost instantly and gives them an affliction. As history has shown, I should probably run away at this point to make sure we don't lose anybody, but I felt we would be able to win this fight easily, and that was a mistake, of course. Not everything has a happy ending. This fight went all sorts of wrong. Our shield breaker had a bunch of heart attacks and ended up on death's door. Our cultist then ended up on death's door and healed for 0. Yep. Our man-at-arms went on death's door at one point as well, and our Houndmaster was just sort of chilling. They were doing most of the damage, and they're the reason why we even won this fight. Oh, also, that shield breaker, yeah, they died. Don't bring a level 2 on a level 3 boss fight. Overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer. But the good news is the Prophet is dead again. That's another death going into week 56. We decided to do a long mission in the Weld with a leper, grave robber, jester, and an occultist. Now, this was a pretty smooth mission overall, but I did not have a super strong team comp for the fungus enemies in this level. They can blight multiple characters at once or mark them and just stack up a lot of damage, and that's what happened with my occultist and jester in a couple battles. We hit death's door, but luckily we were able to pull through and finish with 0 afflictions and deaths. And our occultist was now level 5, and one of the jesters leveled up to 3. Yeah, I brought a level 2 on a level 3 mission. I seem to never learn. But that brings us to week 57, which is a pretty quick one because the Shrieker decided to visit. The Shrieker is a boss that spawns after week 42 and steals 8 of your trinkets. It's a very short mission, and you only have 4 turns to kill them. But if you fail to kill them, you still get all of your trinkets back that were stolen. They just have a very high dodge, so I would say it's good to bring a jester so you can buff your dodge. But for me, this is a level 5 boss fight, so I brought 4 of my level 5 characters. The shield breaker, a highwayman, a cultist, and houndmaster. And in those 4 turns, we get 2 afflictions and do not kill them. But we got all of our trinkets back, so mission complete. Now we go back to the Weld for week 58 as we're 1 successful mission away from a boss. So we do a short level 3 mission and bring a bounty hunter, abomination, jester, and a vessel. And instantly we get destroyed by an old lady and a big ogre with a stick. Our abomination ends up on death's door so fast thanks to the move Tree Branch Smackdown. And this is only the 2nd fight. Luckily we can recover and we do eventually win this fight, but stress is already high so early in the mission. Luckily the rest of the mission went smoothly, even fighting more ogres and grandmas. No more death doors and no more afflictions. Somehow, this team got away with 0 deaths. Week 59, the Fanatic decides to show up in the Hamlet, which is another boss fight that you find in the hallways. If you don't know who the Fanatic is, they show up at your Hamlet, and if you send more than 2 vampires out on a mission, you have a small chance of running into them in the hallways. But I don't have any vampires at the moment because we just recently killed the Baron, so we ignore this handsome man and fully upgrade the blacksmith so I can spend all my 121,000 gold on level 5 upgrades. But remember that last mission in the Weld? Well, since it was successful, we opened up another boss, which was the 12-pounder. So you know what we're doing. We're grabbing the bounty hunter and the arbalist so they can mark an attack, the Hellion so they can attack the matchman, and a vessel to heal us. And you know what happened? The same thing as before, and oh my god, the Hellion didn't kill them instantly. And just like that, we're all almost dead. Oh, great. And the bounty hunter's at death's door. Well, this is good. You see, this is what happens if you don't kill the matchman. But lucky for me, we do kill the cannon a couple turns after. Our Hellion gets thrown on the death's door as well, but that fight is really easy until it's not. But now we're already on to week 60. Now I make an interesting squad with a leper, a highwayman, crusader, and arbalist. Our stress healer is the crusader, who can also heal themselves. The arbalist is our main healer, and the leper's a one-man show who heals and stress heals themselves and does a lot of damage. And then the highwayman is just sexy and has riposte and also does a lot of damage. Good frontline and backline damage. It's a medium mission in the ruins, and this team just does super well. The combination of the highwayman and crusader playing off each other, constantly swapping positions with holy lance and duelist advance, it's really good. And if I don't want to use holy lance, I can stress heal or heal a teammate. We constantly had riposte up, so anyone attacking the highwayman gets a world of pain. The leper was just killing everything up front, and the arbalist was doing great heals and great backline damage. After the level, our highwayman and leper are leveled up to level 5. 2 more characters to join the hell that is coming up, which is champion level missions. Hey, it's me again. We're at week 60. We're feeling pretty good. We have all the level 3 bosses done, except for the miller in the farmstead. We'll get him done eventually, I promise. And we only have 7 deaths total, meaning we added 1 death in the past 10 weeks. And overall, if you look back at these little recaps, every 10 weeks we're adding about 1 death, which I know is not really that good, but statistically, by the end of this run, we're going to have like 10 deaths total. We can win this. Now, we start the 60s with a bounty hunter, grave robber, who I'm still using incorrectly, by the way, a plague doctor, and a vessel. Looking at this team while editing, I'm wondering what the heck I was thinking with lack of backline damage in the Cove, and it was only a short mission, but of course, I'm an idiot, and we have a lot of stress from madmen and these ugly eldritch. But since it was a short mission, I was able to get away without any afflictions, but the stress was high. Next week is another weird team comp, but at this point, I'm trying to level up all these characters to 5, so I can A, start doing more level 5 missions, and B, spend all my money on upgrading characters' armor, weapons, and moves. Because if you haven't noticed, I haven't been talking about money or upgrades, but this entire time we've had the bank, we're up to 150,000 gold, which should cover us for almost all upgrades for all level 5 characters, as they are expensive. But with that said, week 62, we bring basically the exact same team comp, except this time we bring a jester who has a lot of work cut out for them, as everyone is already very stressed at the start of the dungeon. And the jester is actually able to keep us afloat until we camp halfway through the dungeon to bring the stress down even more. We don't have too much major backline damage, but it doesn't seem to be a problem with this team. Lucky me. We finished the mission with only a little stress on the vessel, and everyone is very close to level 5. Now, remember how I said I had all the level 3 bosses done? Well, it was kind of a lie. We have one more level 3 boss hiding out in the farmstead, and that's the miller. I have all the level 3 bosses done from the main game, but the miller is DLC. But he was next on our list. The thing about the farmstead is it's just a gauntlet of battle after battle, so you need to make sure you bring a versatile team that can do everything you need. And for that, I brought a bounty hunter, a man-at-arms, a jester, and a vessel, as they are all almost level 5 as well, and this was a level 3 mission, so this could boost them up. Now, as you can guess, the bounty hunter is the main source of damage, and they can easily move targets if we need it. The man-at-arms has moderate damage, but can also guard if we get into a pinch, and has riposte, which we all know is very, very strong. The jester is our stress healer and team buffer, and then the vessel heals us, of course, and they can also stun. Now, the farmstead itself, it's just a lot of battles, like I said. At the top right, you can see when you get a small break, and each area has different types of enemies. The second area was probably the worst because you faced off against all the new level 3 enemies from every area, but surprisingly, we didn't have any problems with any of them. We were constantly killing everything very well, and when it was time to fight the miller, we were in very good shape. And the miller fight as a whole was super clean. We had some big crits from the bounty hunter, but with the miller spawning enemies so much, I couldn't really hit them too hard. But the riposte from the man-at-arms was constantly hitting for double-digit damage, and with the miller attacking the whole squad a lot, we were easily able to get riposte off. We were getting a little bit low on health, but the stress levels were really good. And also at this point, the miller was practically dead thanks to the man-at-arms and bounty hunter. The jester just kind of buffed us the entire fight, and a few turns later, the miller's dead. And every single character in this mission is now level 5, and they can join us in the Helpful Champion missions. Next week was a simple one. Long dungeon in the Warrens for the Ancestor's Pistol, which is a very good trinket. Nothing bad happened, our team did what they needed to do, and after that mission, we got 4 new level 6 characters. But then week 65 is different, as Brigand Wolf decides to show up, who's a level 6 boss that has a chance to show up after week 40 if you have more than 4 level 5 characters. Now, you could ignore Wolf as a whole, but if you do that, he destroys 3 of your buildings in the Hamlet. What I've done in the past, since I wasn't ready for Wolf, was recruit a level 0 character and then send them into the dungeon alone, just as bait. You don't have to successfully complete the mission to get rid of Wolf. This is just a way to keep your building safe. But at this stage in the run, I can't afford to lose any characters. I decide to bring a Hellion for good damage in any position, Man-at-Arms for bolster, protection, and riposte, a Houndmaster for moderate damage, protection, and distress heal, and a Vessel for heals. The reason I'm bringing 2 guard characters is the moveset Wolf has. They have a move similar to the Prophet where he throws a bomb at your character. Whoever that bomb targets will take massive damage the next turn. And having the option to guard, preferably with the Man-at-Arms, helps make this fight easier as the Man-at-Arms has higher protection and can easily tank a lot of hits. For the dungeon as a whole, it's pretty simple. Go through a very set path, and if you want to take a side path to do 2 extra fights, you can gain a random good trinket like I did this time, which I view is always worth it. Trinkets are so important. But the dungeon closely resembles a circle with the path you need to take. We get through the mandatory hallway battles and find Wolf. My plan went exactly the way I wanted to in the fight. I was lucky and got a virtue on the Man-at-Arms, I will say that, but all the bomb throws to start the fight targeted the Man-at-Arms, which allowed me to easily get damage off with the Hellion and Houndmaster, who had some big crits in this fight. And I was able to constantly have guard up on the Vessel, so the Man-at-Arms was taking every single hit with such high protection of 55%, they weren't taking too much damage. We were able to easily heal all of it, and after a few turns and big crits, we easily take Wolf down, and I don't need to worry about him anymore. After the battle as well, since I knew what to expect, I brought 2 extra shovels, which allowed me to grab another Ancestor trinket, and then we leave and our Man-at-Arms gets a well-deserved level 6 promotion. And a disease. You're welcome, Man-at-Arms. Now, next week is a game-changing run. Not for anything special, really, but it's the first time in my playthrough of this game I finally utilized the Grave Robber correctly with a team comp revolved around moving. You see, I always had a hard time with the Grave Robber because their best move is Lunge, which moves you forward 2 spaces, and it has a very high crit rate of 12% at the max level. And you can combo that move with Shadow Fade, which moves you back 2 spaces, makes you stealth so you can't get hit, and buffs your damage, crit rate, and dodge. Combine those 2 with a move comp, and really it's an amazing thing. In this dungeon, I used the Grave Robber, Crusader, and the Jester as the main 3 characters for damage, as the Crusader and the Jester both have moves that move them up 1 spot with Holy Lance and Dirk Stab. They can both also stress heal if I need it. Overall, that combo being the main focus allowed us to easily destroy a long level 3 mission in the Cove. We also found another collector in here, and he was getting some big heals, but this team comp still made him look easy. Week 66 ends, and all of our move characters that we just used are now level 5, which is good news for me that I can use them again on level 5 missions, as I absolutely loved this composition. But this next week is another long mission. This time it's the Warrens because of the Ancestor's Coat trinket, another great trinket which gives you 15 dodge and only 10% more stress. I brought a Hellion for damage, Bounty Hunter for stuns, marks, damage, and moving the enemy, Jester for stress heal, and Occultist for corpse cleanup, healing, and marking characters. I felt the Occultist and Bounty Hunter would work well together with marking, and the team did exactly what I wanted. Besides becoming vampires, I didn't want that shit. But other than that, no deaths, no afflictions, only one problem, but we got the coat we wanted, and that spawned our first level 5 boss, who I ended up ignoring for the time being. Instead, I decided to go to the Cove with a short level 3 mission to level up more characters to 5, so I have more options on these level 5 dungeons I need to do. We brought a kinda goon squad with a Man-at-Arms, Abomination, Plague Doctor, and a Vessel. No stress healing, and not a lot of damage unless the Abomination transforms, so this mission was more of a challenge. The combination of the Plague Doctor's Blight, Abomination transforming, and the Man-at-Arms riposte, we were able to beat the mission without any afflictions, and 2 of the characters get leveled up to 5. And that latest Cove mission unlocked our second level 5 boss, but I decided to go to the Weld for another good Plague Doctor trinket, the Blasphemous Vial, which increases blight and stun chance along with ranged weapons accuracy, but it adds 25% more stress. Well worth the trade-off, I would say. I bring another move comp related team, but instead of a Crusader, I brought a Shield Breaker this time, and the reason for that is there was a chance to fight the Thing from the Stars on this level. The Shield Bearer would be better for that fight, as the Thing from the Stars has a high level of protection. And in the first hallway, we run into the Thing from the Stars, who actually wasn't really a problem. We had some stress buildup on the Grave Robber and some damage on the Vessel, but the move comp, as I call them, went to work, and the Shield Breaker and Grave Robber did a lot of damage. We easily destroyed the Thing from the Stars. And after that, we finished the mission quest rather early, as it was a gathering quest for a town event. But my overconfidence of this team did go a bit far. I mean, if your character is doing 76 crits, you'd have confidence too. But we had one very close close call against a hateful Virago, which is an enemy only found in the Warrens. They only spawn in level 5 missions, as every area has one new major enemy per level, and this is the level 5 one. All these level 5 enemies are horrible to fight, and this Virago almost killed my grave robber. Lucky for me, my vessel was able to quickly heal them off of death's door, and after that close call, I got out of there ASAP, and everyone lives to see another dungeon, and everyone from this squad was now level 6 as well. Now we're all the way up to week 70, and this is a special one to me. We're gonna see our good friend one more time, Wilbur. And I guess the Swine King. Yeah, we're gonna go fight our first level 5 boss. And we're bringing a Flagellant, a Highwayman, Jester, and an Occultist. Team Comp demolishes absolutely everything, and we easily make it to the Swine King. But I will say, this fight was a little more stressful than others. You see, my brain kind of shut off before this dungeon when I brought a Highwayman. I brought a Highwayman for Riposte, but the Riposte could easily kill Wilbur. And if you kill Wilbur before you kill the Swine King, you're gonna start taking a lot of damage. On top of that, Wilbur was stunning us a good amount, and the Occultist can only heal so much. We have the Flagellant and Highwayman both on death's door at one point, and this Highwayman is dismasked. They're the first character you get at the start of every run. I cannot lose him for reasons. I had one trump card up my sleeve, and that was the moves Solo and Finale on the Jester. If you don't know, every move you do with the Jester will buff the move Finale's damage by 30% for about 8 rounds. You can stack it very well, but you can only use Finale in the one spot. So after a few buffs, we set up Finale using Solo, which moves the Jester forward by 3 automatically, putting him in the front. Along with that, Solo buffs the Jester's dodge and speed, along with Finale's damage and crit rate. And when we needed it most, our Jester hit the Swine God for a solid 78 with Finale, which didn't kill him, but 100% was the reason why we survived this fight without losing anyone. The amount of bleed from the Flagellant was also very strong, and we got very lucky that we didn't have any deaths, including deaths to Wilbur. The Swine God and Wilbur were the first boss finally done, and we can thank the Jester for that one. This is why the Jester's the best character in the game. All right, so we're 70 weeks total into the run now. We have all the level 3 bosses dead, including the Miller and the Baron. We have one level 5 boss done. We still only have 7 deaths, meaning the past 10 weeks went flawlessly. And we have a bunch of level 6 characters. This is the end game, and we are so close to winning this run. But now week 71 starts off with an ambitious goal, and that's going to the courtyard to kill the Viscount in one embark. The Viscount's the second major boss in the courtyard, and like the Baron, once you defeat them, all your vampires get cured of the Crimson Curse. But it's a very long dungeon. Just look how long this is. To make sure I actually get it done in one embark, I have a guide open, like the last time. I've done this mission blind once, and that was more than enough. We bring the exact same team as the first mission: Flagellant for bleed, a Highwayman for damage and riposte, Jester for stress heal and occasional bleed, Vessel for heals and some stuns. I won't bore you too much with this because we do a really good job at just killing everything. We find some camps to give us buffs, and after about 2 hours, yep, 2 hours, we make it to the Viscount. We had 0 death door checks and 0 afflictions on the way here. Really, this team just did it super well on this mission. Now, the Viscount fight I find easier than the Baron, as your heals never get blocked. But the amount of healing the Viscount does is really annoying. Along with that, they're able to cure bleed and blight, but don't worry, the Flagellant's still useful here. I'm not that much of an idiot. All those 3 corpses that are hanging around, they basically save the boss every single time. And on top of all that healing, the Viscount attacks 3 times, and their attacks can do a lot of damage. They even have riposte, so you gotta be careful with that. I end up killing 2 of the corpses in the middle of the battle, but the Viscount never ends up healing after a few early heals. And with their constant attacks, we have almost everyone on death's door, or close to it. At one point, our Highwayman was on death's door with the Viscount still having 1 attack. My only heal option was to purposely attack them with the Flagellant, as when the Flagellant reaches death's door, it heals everyone. And while I used Redeem to heal myself, riposte from the Viscount sent the Flagellant to death's door for a half a second, which healed my Highwayman and allowed them to 100% survive the next move, which was a nasty crit. Overall, big crits, moderate heals, bleed, and riposte made me win this fight, and it was very close. Watching the fight back while editing, I'm impressed we were able to get out of this with everyone alive. The Viscount is down, and the vampires are no more. For now. They'll be back. All right, also, if you didn't know, the courtyard, you can find secret rooms that hold prisoners that you free. Those prisoners turn into characters you can recruit, and their level is whatever level dungeon you're doing, with everything upgraded. And during that last dungeon, I found 2 rooms with a Crusader and a Bounty Hunter, both at level 5 with max upgrades. To save gold, I dismissed 2 characters that need upgrades or level up since my roster is full, and recruit these 2 level 5s. Now the next mission we do is another level up mission, as one of my vessels was still only level 4. I brought an Abomination, Houndmaster, and Antiquarian with me for a level 3 mission. Mission didn't go too well since I wasn't able to play my Houndmaster in the 3 spot, so I wasn't able to stress heal. I am not putting an Antiquarian or a vessel in the 2 spot. Remember what happened the last time I put a vessel in the 2 spot? I'm not taking those chances. So after this entire mission, we did end up with an affliction, but at this point in the game with the bank and our money situation, we can easily just relieve it in town. We escaped with over 20,000 gold and 3 new level 5 characters. Week 73 is next, and it starts off with a town event where we have more damage in the weld on the next quest. And lucky for me, the hag spawned. With the 15% extra damage, I decided to do it and bring a Hellion, Man-at-Arms, a Cultist, and a Houndmaster. Just a reliable team, you know? Good damage, good but inconsistent heals, and an old man who can riposte. I will say we had a lot of trouble hitting things in the first half of this mission, but once we camp, we buff everyone with the Man-at-Arms and de-stress everything, and are ready for the final hag. Well, the fight didn't start too well, as the hag threw my Hellion into the pot first, which then had me have the Man-at-Arms focus the pot, so I was never able to get my bolster up to buff everyone's dodge. I tried to have the Houndmaster focus on doing damage, but the hag just kept on healing. We did get the Hellion out pretty fast and kept on attacking, and somehow my Man-at-Arms could not hit them. I guess only having one eye would do that. The hag then threw my occultist in the pot, and I focused on trying to kill them in this time. I was getting a little nervous with all the healing the hag was doing, but then the Hellion hit a 48 crit to really turn the tide. Our occultist ends up on death's door, and it's thrown back into the battle. Lucky for me, all the moves the hag used do not focus the occultist, and we're able to kill them with the Houndmaster. After the hag is killed, we go back for a secret room, and we want to grab a few extra treasures before leaving. Our second level 5 boss has been defeated. Now to start the next week, I trade some heirlooms to upgrade the stagecoach to allow me to find level 3 characters. Not that it's really much needed, but you never know. And for this week, I decided to try and kill the Siren one last time, as they've been spawned for a bit. We bring a Bounty Hunter, Occultist, Plague Doctor, and Arbalist. I usually bring 3 of these characters in the Cove, and it works pretty well. And that's the exact opposite of what happened this time. Early on, the Arbalist gets stressed out. Not a big deal, we can relieve it at camp. But then about halfway to the Siren, we run into a drowned Thrail, which isn't a bad enemy to fight, but you need to focus them, or else they will explode and absolutely demolish your party. And of course my occultist missed, and then they blew up on our party, and 3 people ended up on death's door, and we got an affliction as well. We're able to finish this battle off with no deaths, but in this shape, we need to leave because we cannot afford any deaths. So week 74 is a failure. To help forget about the crushing guilt of defeat, the next week I decided to go to the ruins with a Leper, Plague Doctor, Crusader, and a Vessel, as I want to spawn one of the bosses to get rid of them. And I just never seem to learn to bring good backline damage. The Crusader's good with Holy Lance, but with no other movement characters, I can't rely on it in battle consistently. The team is surviving through the dungeon, but lo and behold, our best friend the Collector shows up, and my confidence is shot, as I don't like this team comp for this fight. Luckily for me, once the Collector moves to the backline, the Plague Doctor can stun them and move them forward with Disorient and Blast, which will allow the Leper to easily hit them. And that is the reason why I won this fight. I was getting absolutely demolished by these heads that the Collector spawned. Crit after crit after crit, it seems hopeless. But lucky for me, the Leper can also crit and save the day. Nothing else really happens in this week, and we easily survive and grab a good amount of gold. And now we even have more level 6 characters. After that week of mental recovery, I felt it was time to go back and try to take down the Siren again. We bring a Bounty Hunter, a Cultist, a Houndmaster, and a Plague Doctor this time. It's basically the same team as before, but this time we have a Stress Healer, so we should be fine. But of course, another Collector pops up. We're able to kill them thanks to moving them up and marking them, but we ended up with 2 characters on death's door, and our Occultist got a 0 heal while on death's door. Thanks, Occultist. So this mission is not looking good. I decide not to quit the mission, as our main damage dealers did not reach death's door, so they don't have the quest long debuffs. But 2 fights later, our party gets scrambled badly, which then leads to crits and a death's door for our Bounty Hunter, who isn't so lucky and dies in the first death door check. This was another failed week for the Siren. I just cannot get to her. It's time for another week off from the Siren to mentally recover. We decide to go do a long mission in the ruins to go get the Ancestor's Pen Trinket, which buffs your melee damage and crit rate while only adding 10% more stress, which I view as one of the best trinkets in the game. We bring a Hellion, Abomination, Houndmaster, and Vessel. A pretty normal squad for the most part. By now, you know I like having some good damage, stress heal, and regular heal. This was an easy mission for us, nothing really bad happened, and the stress levels never got too high. Easy 35,000 gold, Ancestor's Trinket, and we spawned a boss. You know what we do this next week? We ignore the Siren and go fight the newly spawned Necromancer in the ruins. They can't be as hard as the Siren, right? I bring a Flagellant and a Plague Doctor as they can easily bleed and blight the Necromancer wherever they are as they spawn enemies, so they slowly move to the back. A Highwayman as they can also easily damage every spot, along with having Riposte, and then of course a Vessel for heals. This is a boss fight, so let's just cover that this week. Our Flagellant and Plague Doctor turned into the most vital two with Bleed and Blight, and we're able to stack up to 39 damage at one point with it. The Highwayman was useful here overall, but they weren't as effective as I'd like them be, as the Necromancer spawned an enemy that took up 2 tiles, so I had the Highwayman focus them mostly, as they couldn't hit the Necromancer consistently. But lucky for me, the enemies also tended to focus the Highwayman because he's so goddamn handsome, who dodged nearly every attack because I had 58 dodge thanks to all these trinkets, and our Vessel just kind of healed people when we needed it, you know, the usual things. We ended the fight with high stress on the Plague Doctor, but no affliction. Thanks to Bleed and Blight for carrying me through another mission. And with that, the last Necromancer has fallen for this run. Okay, we're on week 79. Third time's the charm with this Siren. This time I'm bringing another Bounty Hunter, a Man-at-Arms, an Occultist, and a Vessel, as maybe I need a little more heals here and there. We didn't have that much damage overall, but I still felt confident that the squad could easily beat the Siren. And luckily for me, they easily made it there this time. No collectors, no exploding enemies, no bad RNG this time around. This fight took a little bit longer than I expected. You see, I like marking targets with the Occultist and then attacking them with the Bounty Hunter as their move Collect Bounty does more damage on a marked target. But the Bounty Hunter was useless as they kept getting seduced in the beginning of the fight. The Occultist actually turned into the main source of damage, while the Man-at-Arms kept getting some decent damage with Riposte. Lucky for me as well that we kept on dodging everything thanks to Bolster, as we were able to get it off on the first turn. Eventually, the Bounty Hunter is able to fight off the Seduction while the Occultist gets a mark off, and that leads to a 50 damage crit. The Siren then steals the Vessel, which I was okay with. We then proceed to finally kill them as we didn't really need the heals. Third time's the charm, and the Siren is down for the count. To start week 80 off, I do something I've only done once this run, and that's build a district. I still only have the bank built, but I decided to build the Performance Hall, which buffs the Jester's speed and reduces the amount of stress gained. Along with that, it buffs the damage of the move Finale. It's not really an expensive district, so I felt it would be beneficial as the Jester is very important for the endgame. Now for the dungeon in week 80, we send out a Flagellant, a Shieldbreaker, a Jester, and a Vessel on another long quest in the Warrens, as we only have one boss left to kill in every area of the game, and the Warrens is closest to spawning the boss. The dungeon wasn't anything too special. We did have some nightmares after camping with the Shieldbreaker, but that wasn't a problem. We finish another long champion mission with almost 0 stress and gain another ancestral trinket. All right, we're on week 80. The last 10 weeks had a lot of stuff happen, I know. We have 4 bosses left. We have 1 courtyard boss, 1 farmstead boss, 4 darkest dungeon missions, and we only have 20 weeks to do it. And we have 9 deaths also, so we have a few deaths to spare. But we have to be nearly perfect from here on out if we want to get everything done by week 100. All right, let me tell you, week 81 started off horrible. The game offered me 2 level 0 shield breakers. What the hell would I do with these? Anyways, I decided that this is the week we'll do our first of 4 darkest dungeon missions. If you don't know, all 4 of these missions are the same every time you play them, just like the courtyard. And the first one isn't too bad. We only have to fight a boss called the Shuffling Horror. Kind of looks like a shambler. But with a name like the Shuffling Horror, you know what it's time for? My new favorite team comp, which is the move composition. But I need to be careful, as if a character goes into the darkest dungeon and comes back alive, they will refuse to go back in there. So any character going in, I had to accept that they won't be going on the final 3 missions, which is why it's good to have a number of certain characters like Jesters. Now, I decided to go with the Highwayman, Jester, and the Grave Robber for the main damage, as they can all easily move around and deal great damage, along with the Highwayman having Riposte, which is always a nice bonus. And for our 4th character, I went with the occultist, as the horror is eldritch, which the occultist is strong against. Along with that, they can also heal easily from any spot, so the shuffling wouldn't be a problem for them. We got our trinkets and went on. Despite having the jester, we still had a lot of stress to worry about, as the enemies in these darkest dungeon missions are quite dangerous, especially these hooded creeps with their damn finger move. But we do make it to the horror with no afflictions to worry about. We did get an affliction very fast into the fight, but I'm not concerned with stress too much, because after every successful darkest dungeon mission, all stress goes down to zero, and this fight went silky smooth. Shuffling horror's attacks were hitting every single team member, and the highwayman's riposte was constantly critting. Before we got shuffled, it didn't matter because the entire team was reliable in every single position. We killed the horror without a problem, and shortly after, we killed the hooded priest they brought with them, and the first of 4 darkest dungeon missions is easily done. And back to week 82, we're back to our usually scheduled programming with a long mission in the Weld. Nothing too exciting. Before the mission, I removed some quirks in town, as I have an idea in my head which characters will be going to the darkest dungeon. You gotta make sure they're ready, and this long mission gets us another ancestral trinket. We brought a Hellion, a Plague Doctor, a Houndmaster, and a Vessel. Now, you probably expect me to easily ace these missions this far in, right? Well, overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer, but that's not the case here. We did get a Death's Door thanks to our good ogre friend, but other than that, no problems whatsoever. Now, week 83 starts off with a town event where we have a 15% higher chance of gaining a virtue in the next dungeon. And with that, I decided to do the next darkest dungeon mission, as it's commonly referred to as the hardest mission in the entire game. You see, this quest has 2 mini bosses you need to face multiple times, with the Templar Impaler and the Templar Warlord, and they have a move called Revelation that hits for a lot of stress and damage. But the good news is you can negate it with the Talisman of the Flames trinket if your character has it equipped. You get that trinket from the previous darkest dungeon mission, but the thing is, you only get 3 of them, so one character has to go in without it, which means that they need to be guarded at all times while fighting those mini bosses. And you know what that means, right? We need to bring a Man-at-Arms or a Houndmaster, as they have the most reliable guard. So I bring both of them, as they both have the Talisman of the Flame equipped, and I give the third and final flame to a Hellion. And then I bring a Vessel who will heal us, and they will be guarded at all times. Before we go on the quest, I decide to construct the Outsiders Bonfire District, as it gives us 2 more respite points when camping if I have at least an Abomination, Hellion, or Leper in the party, which means we get more buffs. Trust me, this comes in handy big time for these missions. The mission as a whole has you activate 3 Iron Crowns, all having their own path. I'm only going to be talking about those battles as they have mini bosses, but I was able to stretch out my 2 camps, so I always had buffs for each fight. The first Iron Crown fight is a simple boss, 1 Templar and 2 Polyps to kill. I have the Houndmaster only guard the Vessel for the entire fight, so they just kind of sat there dodging everything. The Man-at-Arms bolstered us and constantly had to keep putting riposte up, so we got free damage whenever he got hit, and the Hellion did all the damage for us. This first fight wasn't too bad. Some stress buildup, but everything went our way. On the way to the second Iron Crown to activate, we have a few more battles, and we try to keep the stress down with the Houndmaster. It's getting close to 100 with the Hellion and the Man-at-Arms. Once we get to the second crown, we have 2 Templars to fight, and it was similar to the first fight, except this time we got an affliction on the Hellion. But the Houndmaster just guarded the Vessel the entire time. The Vessel just healed the entire time. The Man-at-Arms buffed us and had riposte and missed a lot. Then the Hellion seemed to live on Mars, because they were out of this world with all the crits they were hitting. The bad thing about this fight, besides the affliction, was the amount of blight they were causing. Sure, we were doing a lot of damage with all these Hellion crits, but we were running out of anti-venom pretty fast, and we still had 1 more major fight left. But with only 1 affliction, it's still looking pretty good. But the path to the third and final Iron Crown did not go as well as those first 2 ones. We ran into 4 priests who gave us a good fingering. They screwed us, okay, with a lot of stress and damage. We got a virtue, which was very nice. We also ended up getting an affliction on the Houndmaster, and going into the final crown, we had 3 people with over 100 stress. This final fight had only 1 Templar and 2 little Hounds, which we should be able to do. But I did make some early mistakes, like not guarding the Vessel with the Houndmaster, forcing me to use the Man-at-Arms to guard, and then the Houndmaster also passing on their turn, which isn't really my fault, but it's still annoying. But the Templar was causing a lot of blight, and we had 0 anti-venom. So we were taking a lot of extra damage every turn, and I still haven't hit them, as I wanted to get rid of the little Hounds first. But we also kept missing. This was not looking good. After what seems like forever, we get the Hounds down, and we only have the Templar to deal with. And the Hellion finally hit big like they did before, with a 37 crit to turn the tide in our direction. The Vessel in this battle, also, man, they were healing us like crazy. At some point, they would not have been able to keep up with all the blights, but the Hellion hit another big crit, made the Templar have very little health left. And then a couple turns later, the Templar hits a huge team-wide attack on us, but Riposte is able to finish them off, and with it, the hardest mission in the game is done. That was a long one, and it was almost very bad because we cannot afford to mess up right now. So we have 2 of the 4 darkest dungeons done now, so I shifted my focus towards finishing off all the bosses. So we set out to do a long mission in the Warrens with a Hellion, Flagellant, Houndmaster, and a Vessel. And I'll be honest, nothing exciting happened. We kicked everything's ass and ended a long mission with 0 stress. At this point in the game, money doesn't mean anything to us as we have all of our characters fully leveled up. Heirlooms are probably more important if I wanted to get another district, but with the completed quest, we got the final Warrens boss to spawn, which is the Flesh. And we decide to bring a Shieldbreaker, Flagellant, Houndmaster, and Vessel to this final Flesh battle. Shieldbreaker has Impale, if you remember, which can blight and deal damage to every enemy. Flagellant has good bleed as well. Houndmaster has stress heal and great damage, and Vessel heals us. We make it to the Flesh without a problem, and this is where the fun begins. Our lovely Shieldbreaker missed their first Impale, which is always so nice, and then the Flesh lands a solid 26 crit on 2 of my characters, bringing one of them to death's door instantly. But lucky for me, the next form of the Flesh had 3 healing characters, so I was able to heal with only needing to worry about 1 damage and attack. And after that, it was all downhill for the Flesh, as I stacked up bleed and blight and was able to take away 70 health in the span of 1 turn, thanks to damage over time, and very quickly and efficiently, we take down the Flesh for the final time. That fight started off pretty bad. Thank God I had some good RNG for once. This next week was not a special week, but it was still dramatic. We went on a long mission in the Cove with our favorite move comp with the Crusader, Jester, Grave Robber, and the Occultist. The team themselves were great, killing everything that came their way. But the traumatic part of this mission was when everyone started turning into vampires and I did not bring any blood with me to feed them. If you don't remember, characters who receive the Crimson Curse can die if they don't have any blood. And I have plenty of it just back at the Hamlet. So this entire mission was very stressful as every character was taking their turn going into the wasting phase, meaning they could die at any second. And I know what you're probably thinking. You ran away to save them, right? You can't afford any deaths this late in the game. And while, yes, that's true, I also can't afford to fail a mission this late into the game. So we were taking a major risk by not leaving this mission. Every step we took could lead to a death. But I also got very lucky and was able to find some blood every time a character was about to die. So lucky me, I guess. We end the mission with practically 0 stress, and the move comp continues to show their dominance, except when I don't have any blood. Next is week 87, and we have a negative town event for once, where our virtue chance is down by 10% on the next mission. So you know we're keeping it nice and simple with a long mission in the Cove again, so we can try and spawn the final Cove boss. We bring a Leper, Abomination, Plague Doctor, and an Occultist. I probably could have brought the same comp as last time and been totally fine, but decided to change it up, and it was not going as good as last time. We were still killing everything, but the stress levels were much higher. And then eventually we get another vampire because those enemies are running rampant. And then towards the end of the mission, our Occultist gets thrown into death's door. But don't worry, he doesn't die. We easily recover it, and we finish another long Cove mission with some added stress. Week 88 is here, and we prepare to fight the drowned crew one last time, but they didn't spawn. We were 90% of the way towards the boss spawn after 2 long missions, which was very disappointing. So instead, I decided to do the 3rd darkest dungeon mission, which I view as the 2nd or 3rd hardest mission in the game. It's a very long mission if you don't look at a map, which I do because I don't want to get lost for 3 freaking hours. I bring a Hellion, a Man-at-Arms, a Houndmaster, and a Vessel, and I'm feeling confident but a little nervous. The reason this mission is so long is your goal for the quest is in the heart of the dungeon, but throughout the dungeon, you fight mammoth enemies who are very deadly, have a lot of health, they can heal themselves, and they apply a lot of blight. And then alongside them, they have these white cell stalks who don't do a lot of damage, but they can teleport you to a random room in the dungeon, which can easily cause you to lose your way. So you need to be able to kill them fast or stun them. Killing them will have the mammoth spawn another one, so you need to be able to kill everything well and manage everything. And our first of many mammoth battles, we have multiple death doors and just not enough damage at all. Multiple characters constantly getting blighted, and at one point my Vessel and Hellion get blighted and thrown on the death's door, and then we get teleported away, which can be very good if they can survive the blight on death's door, and then the Vessel's dead. They couldn't survive it, which ruins the rest of the mission. The Hellion survives the blight, but we're forced to retreat. And if you didn't know, if you retreat in a Darkest Dungeon quest, you lose a character. So we're basically losing 2 characters now. And during the retreat, we lose our Hellion, and now we have 11 deaths total thanks to this failure of a mission. And to make things worse, week 89, the Shrieker comes into town and steals some trinkets, and I ignore them for now. I decide it's time to do another courtyard mission to try and finally remove all these vampires for good. If we're successful, we won't be able to fight the Fanatic this run, but I'm willing to take that risk. We bring a shield breaker, a flagellant, a jester, and a vessel for this final courtyard mission. We're trying to finish this mission in one embark, so we need to have good damage, stress heal, and heal in general, which we do have. We go through the courtyard pretty easily with this team, and they're all slowly becoming vampires as well. We grab a few camps, and after an hour of fighting and going through this dungeon, we make it to the Countess. This courtyard mission is probably the 2nd or 3rd hardest mission in the game, next to the 3rd darkest dungeon mission we just failed, so I was a little nervous, as we can't afford failure, but I felt I brought a solid team. But the Countess is just a brutal fight. She spawns some little bombs on you that eventually explode on your character for about 20 damage or so. And on top of that, she can cause bleed, blight, stress you out, and just overall everything. They can even cure bleed and blight. The flagellant's not as useful as I'd like, but we got the Countess to close to half health, and in the process even got 2 virtues. But the amount of damage done and the amount of moving around that she causes to your team was just too much to overcome. Our flagellant, who's seen so many bosses and so many courtyard missions, is the first to fall. A few turns later, our jester, who didn't do anything this entire fight due to being moved around, dies next. At this point, I should have run away and accepted defeat along with our 12th and 13th death. But I'm so goddamn stubborn and stuck into this fight thinking I could somehow win. And don't get me wrong, the Vessel and Shieldbreaker did good. The amount of utility the Countess has was just way too much for the Vessel to heal, and the Shieldbreaker could only do so much damage. A few minutes later, the Shieldbreaker dies, and that's when I decide to run away and accept defeat. The courtyard is still going strong. In week 90, with our hopes defeated for the time, we go and fight the Shrieker again to recover our lost trinkets. We brought a good team, but with only 4 turns to kill the Shrieker, I didn't expect much. But in those 4 turns, we almost killed them. They run away, leaving us with all of our trinkets and one super stressed team. What a horrible way to enter the last 10 weeks of the game. To have 90 weeks of Darkest Dungeon basically eliminated in the span of a few weeks, let me tell you, it's a pretty horrible feeling. Just like that, we're up to 14 out of 16 deaths, and we still have 2 Darkest Dungeon missions to do. I'm not going to be able to kill everything by 100 weeks, that's for sure, and even if I want to win this run in general, I'm going to need to pull out a miracle. But I do have a plan to at least get past the next Darkest Dungeon mission. Let's see what I can do. Week 91 is here, and we decide it's time to go back and do the 3rd Darkest Dungeon mission once again. If we lose anyone, the run is over. So I did some hard thinking and came up with the perfect team comp for this mission. We have a Leper, a Cultist, a Plague Doctor, and a Houndmaster for this. The Leper has the move Revenge, which buffs their accuracy, damage, and crit rate for the entire battle, but also makes you take more damage and have less dodge. We planned on using Revenge with the Emboldened Vapors to buff the Leper's damage, and then guard with the Houndmaster, occasionally while the Occultist dealt any extra damage and healed us. In our first Mammoth battle, we miss. That's the Leper. And then we get teleported. Not a big deal. We're still all healthy. We fight our way to the 2nd Mammoth battle, and our plan is to do the exact same thing. Buff the Leper, and miss again. But once they actually start hitting, it's a beautiful 65 crit. And once the Leper actually starts hitting consistently, the first of 2 required Mammoths fall. Also, remember those Warlord Templars from the last mission? Yeah, you have to fight one of them again, but luckily they can't do the move Revelation. They weren't a problem either. Just look how powerful this Leper is. My plan is working great. We then find our last Mammoth, and the same thing as before. Guard and buff the Leper, and pray we don't get teleported. And it worked out perfectly. The Leper hits huge crits at the end, and we had some very nice stuns on the stock that teleports us. On top of that, we had some big dodges. That squad easily gets us through the 3rd Darkest Dungeon mission. We have 1 Darkest Dungeon mission left, but we also have a problem. I have 14 deaths out of 16, and in the final mission, you need to sacrifice 2 people. And if you reach 16 deaths in a Blood Moon run, it goes to a game over screen. So I have 2 options that don't involve cheesing the final fight. Go in with 3 people, so I only have to sacrifice 1 and hope that a squad of 3 can win, or try to spawn a rare town event that revives one of your characters. If I can revive a character, my death count goes down to 13, which will allow me to bring 4 party members. Trying to get the town event is risky, as I can't lose anyone while doing these missions, and the event only has a 5% chance to spawn. Let me tell you, I try week after week with any squad I can find to try and get the event done. I avoid boss battles because at this rate, I know I can't get them all done within 100 weeks. But if I can win this final battle, I can get the boss battles done with a little bit of overtime. Week after week, I get numerous town events, and on week 98 out of 100, we get the town event where we have a 15% higher chance to receive a virtue, and with only one more week to spare, I decide that it's time to go do the final mission with only 3 characters. I don't think I was going to get a better event than this. I could try to make the best 3-man team possible, like 2 plague doctors and a leper, but I'll be honest, this entire run, I had one goal that I never told you about, and that goal was getting Dismas and Renaud, the first 2 characters you get in this game, to the final Darkest Dungeon. It's an achievement I've always wanted to do, and I've always fell short on it, but this was my opportunity to achieve it, and I took it. The bad thing is, with the run, I don't have a high chance of winning. I decided to take an occultist on the fight as my main healer and keep Renaud the Crusader as a stress healer in the 3 spot. I can still use Holy Lance consistently. And with that, I'd put Dismas the Highwayman in the 2 spot so I could get Riposte up. I felt confident with my plan and went into the final dungeon ready to take on the final challenge. The final boss has 4 phases, with the first phase having you attack the imperfect replications of the ancestor, which spawn randomly when you kill other replications. And early on, the team is doing good, but then a couple crits on the occultist, and the stress is just being too much to handle. We receive an affliction. That town event didn't do shortly after the affliction. The stress and damage is too much for the occultist to handle, and they have a heart attack. 15 deaths total, and it's up to Dismas and Renaud to get through all 4 phases of this final boss. They started this journey together so long ago, and god damn it, they're gonna finish it and win it together. Oh, and never mind, Renaud had a heart attack. You probably saw that coming. And I guess that's game over. 99 weeks of a Darkest Dungeon run for that. 100 hours of editing, recording, and writing this video for a loss. I hope I surprised you, and I hope you were expecting a victory, because let me tell you, I was. This was the closest I could get for a Blood Moon run for now, but I will be attempting another one whenever this gets uploaded. I really appreciate you watching this video, because I feel like a channel at my size uploading a video like this might not do the best, but I've always wanted to make a Darkest Dungeon video because I love Darkest Dungeon. I really do. I love the game so much. I've always wanted to make a video on it, and I never knew what to do until this came into my head. Was it worth it? I'd say yeah. If it doesn't do well, I'll be depressed for like 2 days, but who cares? It was a fun video, and I really appreciate you watching, and I hope you stick for the credits. They're fun. The guy editing this video worked really hard in those credits, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cue the credits.
Assault cannot be left unanswered. A powerful blow.
No! No! Oh, bounty hunter, come back! We're about to win! You motherfucker! I may regret not healing. I don't regret it.
Prodigious size alone does not dissuade.
God damn!
Dazed, reeling.
And they're bleeding! Oh my god! You better survive a bleed check, you son of a... And Stina decided to refuse heals. So Stina might die because they were like, you know what? I don't want to be healed. Oh my god. You deserve that. See you later. You deserve to die.